Jian Wushuang felt that the pair of eyes were staring at him, but he couldn't sense who it was. Forget it. With the goat horn old man here, there shouldn't be any problems. With a twitch of his heart power, the ripples in his heart calmed down once more. There were still 11 golden swords on the battlefield. He had to seize all of them. As for the one that Zhu Bachi had taken away, he had no choice but to get as many as he could. Not long after he returned to his seat, Elder Nine Swords brought the golden sword to him. The small golden sword swam around him like a fish. Pa! He grabbed the swimming golden sword and kept it into his origin source. Jian Wushuang was shocked by the great Tao after he carefully comprehended it. This is a colorful great Tao, with the source being the variegated part. Following it is only a small strand of golden origin, but it brings immeasurable benefits. Indeed, the great Tao of the Xianxia ancestor is extraordinary. It has already fused space with the Tao of the sword, and within the origin of the sword Tao, there is even a trace of the Tao of all things. This pleasantly surprises him. He didn't expect that a golden sword could not only enlighten him on his ultimate path but also bring benefits to the extreme Tao. The power of all things. It is a force stronger than devouring. Once the extreme Tao breaks through the 7th layer and masters the power of all things, among the Grand Yen Immortals, he will be truly invincible. Emperors can be slain, whether they are from the outside world or natives, all can be defeated. Now, the extreme Tao is breaking through continuously. Although the 7th layer is very close, it is not easy to break through. Every 3 layers pose a bottleneck, making it extremely challenging to overcome. The 3 layers of the power of devouring rely on consumption, and there is almost no reliance on cultivation. Now, wanting to enter the 7th layer is simply not knowing where to start. He can only devour some origin source first and make the 6th layer perfect. Devour. The native Tao lords and those emperors were the true delicacies. No wonder the Qixin temple suppressed those demon lords, keeping them confined. Releasing them would pose a significant threat. In no time, they could devour practitioners from the 4 great secret realms. Moreover, the more they devoured, the stronger they became, and the backlash grew more formidable. Once the snowball started rolling, even Jinling might not be able to contain it. After understanding these dynamics, Jian Wushuang felt a sense of acceptance. Shan Jun had shown him kindness, and while there were dark thoughts within him, there were limits to how far he would go. Having pondered this, he left a thought power avatar in the origin Tao, freeing his mind from these concerns. On the arena, Jian Wushuang wasn't the quickest to finish a battle. There was another Taoist whose strength was formidable. He challenged the sword leader and was defeated with just 1 stroke, even faster than Jian Wushuang. The emperor's sons and daughters from various sects were all formidable, engaging in reciprocal battles with those from the Tai A sword sect. As they fell one by one, it was nothing out of the ordinary. However, there was a Tao lord who persisted until the end. Broly. Jian Wushuang's gaze shifted, watching the robust, bare-chested man on the arena with some surprise. The strength of this person he had seen through long ago. Even now, upon closer inspection, it remained the same. How could he possibly persist until now? With a slight concentration of thought power, he probed the arena. Upon reevaluation, Broly's aura, even after continuous battle, was still growing stronger. Both divine body and origin source were undergoing transformations with the ongoing fight. "He's not cultivating the Tao of the sword," someone exclaimed. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Well, no kidding. If others weren't using a sword and the origin source didn't carry any sword intent, how could it be sword cultivation? A wandering cultivator who didn't cultivate the Tao of the sword, but managed to enter the Xianxia palace to observe the sword tide. He turned his gaze to the back rows. Seated in the 4th row, an emperor clenched his fists, staring intently at the arena. His appearance bore a striking resemblance to Broly. "My son, you must win, for the glory of the Dabu clan." He was a sword Tao emperor. Jian Wushuang immediately recognized the identity of the emperor. Then, he turned to look at a 4th-level emperor standing beside him and asked, "Dao friend Zhang, who is that person behind us?" This Zhang, with the title Hun Tianjuano, was a powerful Tier 4 emperor with a strong background, hailing from a super family. His influence was not weaker than that of the Xianxia palace, a force Jian Wushuang was familiar with. I've heard of this person. When I was assigned to Liuzhou by the family, he was the first person one got to know. With the strength of a Tier 3 emperor, he has been working hard for the family since the collapse of our sect, which is not an easy task. Hun Tianjun explained with a slight smile. Hun Tianjun raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. What's this? Wushuang Taoist is interested in him. Jian Wushuang shook his head, glancing at Broly on the stage. I'm more interested in his son. Haha. In that case, after the ceremony, I can arrange for the father and son to meet privately, Hun Tianjun said, patting his chest. His background was formidable, his personal strength solid, and he had friendly relations with many Tier 5 emperors. Assigned to Liuzhou, he aimed to safeguard the family's interests and expand his network. Ian Wushuang's expression changed slightly as he said slowly, "There's no need for that. I have limited time this time. I'll leave once the Golden Sword event is over. I'm just curious about this Broly. He doesn't practice the Tao of the sword, yet he's here to contend for the Golden Sword." This kind of thing had actually happened before. A non-sword cultivator had come to snatch the Golden Sword. Firstly, it was to become famous. Secondly, it was to obtain the Golden Sword and sell it at a high price. However, such opportunities were rare. Sword cultivators rarely had the chance to enter, especially those at the level of Tao Lords. Just like the strong individuals inside the Tide Viewing Pavilion now. 90% of them were sword cultivators. The remaining 10% consisted of some emperors, bringing along their family or sect juniors to observe the sword tide. Broly, on the other hand, was different. He wasn't a sword cultivator. His father, however, was. He followed his father into the Xianxia palace. Could it be that he came to seize the golden sword for his father? Hun Tianjun glanced around. With friends in all directions and a discerning eye, how could he not see Jian Wushuang's confusion? Friend Wushuang, that Emperor Bukuin is a sword Tao emperor. His son, Broly, challenging the stage to win the golden sword, is largely to help his father seize the golden sword and also to gain fame. Hun Tianjun quietly transmitted his voice. It was just as he had speculated. If that was the case, then it was not surprising. With Broly's performance in the arena, even if he lost in the end, he would become famous in the flow state in the future and would definitely be roped in by some large factions. Winning would be even better. The emperors in the back rows were already trying to recruit Emperor Bukuin. This was the influence of a father paving the way for his son. Emperor Bukuin's strength was weak, at most a Tier 3 top-level emperor. Among the emperors present, there were few weaker than him. If he joined certain forces, he might, at best, rise to become a leader of the outer sect. After all, not being the direct disciple, he could only become an outer sect leader with no future prospects. It would be better to be a wandering cultivator. On the arena, Broly's aura became stronger and stronger as he fought. His physical body had already reached perfection, and his entire body had become stronger. His body was like a pinnacle true treasure, indestructible. His weapon was also very strange. It was a supreme treasure glove. As he punched it, the supreme treasure in his hand began to tremble. 10,000-fold divine body. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Broly's divine body to continue rising. His divine body had already broken through 10,000 times. His origin source Tao was comparable to that of cultivators from the outside world. Among the same cultivation level in the 4 great secret realms, there were probably few sources as powerful as Broly. The Taiye sword, who initially held the upper hand in the battle against Broly, was now gradually losing ground, showing signs of exhaustion. This scene caused a drastic change in the expressions of the onlookers at the Tide Viewing Pavilion. The third defeat. The Lord of Xianxia Palace remained unfazed. He didn't care much about the younger generation. Losing face was the worst that could happen, but it wouldn't affect him. However, it was different for the Grand Elder. He had always been in control of the younger generation, and while losing a sword duel once was normal, losing twice was considered the limit. Now he had suffered a third defeat. Without waiting for Jian Wushuang to sweep through, the remaining half of the Emperor's sons and Taoists would probably be enough to make them lose the other half. This exceeded his expectations. Elder Zhujian had a different perspective. Losing wasn't terrible. What was frightening was the Grand Elder's inability to accept defeat. The foundation of the younger generation needed a change long ago. After this event, he would seek permission from the ancestor to make adjustments. Additionally, efforts to recruit independent cultivators needed to increase, and financial resources should be allocated more heavily. Cultivation focused on method and wealth. These two aspects accounted for the majority. While the Xianxia Palace naturally lacked no cultivation techniques and supreme arts, financial resources might be relatively scarce, mainly due to the limited influence. If they could unify Liuzhou, the position of the Xianxia Palace would ascend to a higher level. This one, Elder Zhujian gazed at Broly on the arena. Although this individual possessed both potential and strength, he was not a swordsman. Bringing him into their fold wouldn't be of much help. On the other hand, his father could be persuaded. Broly's displayed strength surpassed even Zhu Bachi, quickly making him a candidate for the Tier 4 Emperor. A future Tier 4 Emperor, possibly even reaching Tier 5, was worth recruiting. Elder Zhujian's thoughts shifted, and he immediately transmitted a message to the attendants on the periphery. Spread the word. After the grand ceremony, keep the father and son Broly. Whatever requests they make, agree to them. This approach might not sit well with the palace master and the Grand Elder, but it was a method of accumulating strength. During the previous upheaval in Liuzhou, an ancient ruin emerged. Due to a shortage of manpower, they suffered a significant loss. In the face of the great powers' wars and the overwhelming number of cultivators, their own formidable individuals were too few. Boom! We're going to lose. Many sighed. Although some swordsmen were not from Xianxia Palace, they still did not want to see a swordsman defeated by an outsider. Jian Wushuang was indifferent to this. Broly gave him a strange feeling. If necessary, he would engage in a battle with him, using the power of devouring to examine Broly's origin source. It was the first time he had encountered an origin source that grew stronger with each battle. He didn't inform the old man with the sheep horns about this matter because, aside from him, it seemed that many others had not paid too much attention to Broly's increasing aura. Broly wins. Returning to the tide-viewing pavilion, Broly spoke very little. Just a slight nod. He accepted the golden sword and then returned to his place. Bukuin's face was full of smiles as he kept praising Broly's bravery. Swoosh! Under everyone's gaze, Broly gave the golden sword to his father, Bukuin. Many people mew about this, but they didn't expect Bukuin to be so shameless, actually openly asking his son for something. It was simply a disgrace to the emperor's face. Many cold-hearted sword cultivators snorted and turned away, refusing to look. In response, the father and son remained calm and composed. Bukuin graciously accepted the sword, then walked directly towards Jian Wushuang. Your Highness Wushuang, please accept this golden sword. Ha! Jian Wushuang turned to look at the bowing Bukuin, full of confusion. What is this person up to? He took his son's golden sword, and then turned around to give it to him. Other powerful individuals witnessing this scene also showed expressions of disbelief. You don't compliment someone like that, do you? Emperor Bukuin, I can't accept this golden sword. Jian Wushuang quickly declined. While the golden sword would be immensely useful to him, he didn't want to gain without contributing. He had devoured even the origin source of the universe. Why would he care about a strand of Emperor's origin source? Bukuin raised his head, glanced at the old man with goat's horns, and once again bowed to Jian Wushuang, respectfully saying, I am weak in the way of the sword. Even if I obtain the golden sword, I won't have the fortune to use it. Such a treasure will only have great utility in your Highness's hands. I am willing to offer this golden sword in exchange for a promise from your Highness. Promise? Jian Wushuang was speechless. What value did his promises hold? Wasn't this essentially giving away treasures? If Bukuin knew his true identity, he probably wouldn't act this way. He was just an inheritor with no distinguished background. The trial hadn't even concluded. After the trial, when they settled into the 4 great secret realms, their status wouldn't be exceptionally high. After all, their potential was great, but their strength wasn't yet formidable. Let's not talk about the Dao fusion. The native Dao Lord's origin was weak, and the chances of Dao fusion were high, usually successful. Apart from Dao fusion, Jian Wushuang didn't believe that his future days would be smooth. The current trial was just a selection. Once they entered the 4 great secret realms, the challenges would become more severe. Did anyone truly think that Qixin Temple inheritors would swagger around the 4 great secret realms with overwhelming strength? However, an empty promise in exchange for a golden sword, Jian Wushuang's conscience could accept it. It wasn't a bad deal. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang flipped his hand and took out a peak-level treasure along with a fruit that enhanced origin power. The former was a decent innate treasure, used to guard the origin source. It was a treasure typically used by emperors outside, but its value wasn't as high in the 4 great secret realms, perhaps around 10,000 godstones. The latter was somewhat special, valued at around 50,000 divine stones. Combined, it still didn't match the worth of the golden sword. The crucial point was that Jian Wushuang only had these few items left. The former was a treasure guarding the origin source, and the latter was just removed from his own body. I'm not fond of owing others favors. Take these treasures. Jian Wushuang made a slight movement, extracting a strand of extreme Dao origin source from his own origin source, accompanied by the power of all things. Is this strand of origin for the young master? Someone remarked as the origin became apparent, visible to everyone. This origin source? It's incredible. Jian Wushuang hadn't expected that simply taking out a strand of origin source would cause such a stir among the onlookers. Dao friend Wushuang, where did you get this origin source? Han Tianjun fixed his gaze on the origin source, his eyes burning with intensity. Realizing his mistake, he quickly spoke to change the topic. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang immediately responded, "It was bestowed by my elders, nothing precious. Anyway, he was leaving after today. No matter what he said, no one would know. He was not afraid of being exposed in the future. He took out so many things, but Bukuin was a little shy and unwilling to accept them." Jian Wushuang frowned slightly and said, "What? Not enough?" No, it's enough," Bukuin said nervously, while Broly behind him had a deep and unfriendly expression. Then Bukuin quickly accepted these treasures. Jian Wushuang was satisfied only when he received the golden sword. He already had enough karmic debts, and promises were also a form of karma. He tried to avoid using karma for things that could be solved with treasures. It would be difficult to repay later. After receiving the golden sword, Han Tianjun quickly congratulated him. Then he quietly mentioned Bukuin's request. It turned out that the other party had a favor to ask, which was why he offered the golden sword. Now, he wanted Han Tianjun to help him deliver a message. "Wushuang, this Bukuin is not ordinary. He wants that senior from your group, the one who came with you, to accept Broly as his disciple, and he wants to do it in front of so many strong individuals." Jian Wushuang was startled. The old man with sheep horns was only a Tier 5 emperor. Even if he was much stronger than others of the same rank, these people shouldn't be able to see it. Except for the master of Xianxia Palace. Broly's potential was enormous. After gaining fame in Liuzhou, any sect would offer high conditions to recruit him. The Xianxia Palace might try to win him over. It wasn't difficult for a fifth-order emperor to accept disciples. If willing, probably all the other fifth-order emperors present would accept Broly. There was no need to become a disciple of the old man with sheep horns. Jian Wushuang voiced his doubts, but Han Tianjun chuckled inwardly and answered, "Wushuang, when you and Senior Yang came, did you encounter the Lord of the Heaven Hall stationed in Liuzhou?" "Ah, so that's how it is." No need for Han Tianjun to explain. Jian Wushuang understood it instantly. Bukuin was trying to cling onto a thigh. Han Tianjun had mentioned how Bukuin, as a disciple of a Tier 5 emperor, wasn't significant. Major powers wouldn't yield due to this relationship. However, If he became a disciple of Yang Sanmu, leveraging Yang Sanmu's connection with the temple master, their family's status might soar. Jian Wushuang hadn't considered much about it. The conflicts within the four great secret realms were far more ruthless than he had imagined. In this humility, he presented a gift to a Tao Lord. In the end, it was not only for his son, but also for the family. It seemed that Jian Wushuang's impression of him had changed a lot. However, his ties with Bukuin had already diminished. The extreme Tao origin source was unique in the world, and a golden sword was more than enough to replace it. If he wanted to become Yang Sanmu's disciple, he had to speak for himself. Considering his current status, he didn't think Yang Sanmu would give him face. After this small episode, the sword seizing continued, and he continued to participate. Today's Xianxia Palace had already been cleared. If the palace master issued a command, he might show some respect. But if no one brought it up, he wouldn't be polite. In the second round, he casually chose a Tai sword and gave the opponent a chance. With 3 easy rounds, he secured victory. This was the overwhelming power of the origin. He might not match the opponent in martial arts, but in the origin source Tao, he had never feared anyone. In just 2 hours, he swept through all the Tai swords except for Sword Leader. Of the 13 Tai Pa swords, the 13th and 7th swordsmen lost to Zhubachi and Broly, leaving the remaining 10 Tai swords defeated and taken by Jian Wushuang. Now only Sword Leader remained. This was the last fig leaf of Xianxia Palace. In the history of Xianxia Palace, this had never happened before. If Jian Wushuang were the extraordinary Tao Lord of Zhongzhou, the palace master of Xianxia Palace would probably intervene for the sake of face. But he wasn't from the major sects. He was the Tao Lord from the Grave God Mountain. Without considering backgrounds, just looking at strength, many emperors witnessed it. If the palace master of Xianxia really intervened, it would only make others look down on them. Better to be straightforward. The extraordinary Tao Lord from Grave God Mountain sweeping through a sect's emperor's disciples would not be a disgrace when spoken out. Boom! Jian Wushuang fell onto the arena once again. Xianxia Palace. Contemporary sword leader, Yong-en. He was still the older brother of Zhuifeng, and both brothers were among the contemporary 13 Tai Pa swords. Yanzhen was the sword leader. Their clan's emperors were proud of this. In the previous battles, similar to Jian Wushuang, he also defeated his opponents in 3 rounds without any hesitation. Now, facing Jian Wushuang, he showed no signs of panic. The final battle. He was also the most likely opponent to make Jian Wushuang use his full strength. Many people in the Tide Viewing Pavilion were watching him. Except for that Broly, who didn't cultivate the sword Tao and didn't like crowded places. He sat alone, drinking by himself. Knowing Jian Wushuang's strength, Sheep Three Eyes didn't pay much attention. Instead, he glanced at Broly and then discreetly transmitted a message through the identity token. Jian Wushuang noticed Broly's difference, and Sheep Three Eyes naturally saw it too. Among these native emperors, their origin Tao was too weak, and their thought power was lacking. They couldn't discern the true value of this uncut jade. The Elder Palace. Wuxia, sitting on the throne in his Dharma form, received Sheep Three Eyes' message and his gaze deepened. He immediately stood up and personally went to Liuzhou. Could it be the path of transformation? Wuxia muttered to himself. If it really was the path of transformation, he would achieve great success once again. This matter must not be known to the White Tiger Temple. If his true self wasn't in seclusion, he might even let his true self go personally. But one Dharma form was enough. He used to be a registered disciple of Qixin, with overwhelming strength. Even his Dharma form had 6th-order combat power. Moreover, since returning to the Qixin Temple, he had gained many benefits. He was in the Qixin Temple, where he had hidden many treasures and powerful remnants. During his exploration, he had gained a lot of benefits from these places. Now, with a single law avatar, he carried several eternal treasures. Once he absorbed those treasures, his strength would see a significant boost. Venturing through the 4 great secret realms? He never held those native emperors in high regard. The path of the strong always led to the outside world. Having strengthened himself and possibly emptied the treasures of the Qixin Temple, he knew he had to go out and explore. The 4 great secret realms were places he had already visited. For him, these realms were like a backyard with nothing much to explore. For ordinary emperors, it might be worthwhile, but for someone of his strength, the treasures in the 4 great secret realms held little attraction. He possessed numerous eternal treasures, including the superb eternal treasure, the pitch-black giant snake crafted by the Qixin Temple. Apart from the universe treasure, other treasures didn't catch his interest because of their limited utility to him. Qiu Huang, who oversaw the teleportation hall, hurriedly rose to greet Wuxia when she saw him. "Friend Qiu Huang, please teleport me to Liuzhou," Wuxia said in a friendly tone, causing Qiu Huang to feel a bit embarrassed. He nodded in agreement and courteously guided Wuxia into the teleportation array. After injecting divine power, the entire array instantly activated. Qi Huang's heart stirred, suddenly thinking that Jian Wushuang and Yang Sanmu had just gone to Liuzhou, and now Wuxia had also left. Could there be a problem over there? After seeing off Wuxia, he quickly used his identity token to contact Jian Wushuang. Little guy. On Wuxia's side, the world spun, and once again he found himself in Sharo City. However, the moment he entered Charlo City, his entire being trembled. A powerful sense of threat furrowed his brows. Boom! The entire Sharo City shook, and the emperors outside the teleportation array rose into the air, ignoring the teleportation array and charging towards the north. As Wuxia just stepped out of the teleportation array, the 3 teleportation arrays behind him began to collapse. People in the city also started to flee, all heading north. North, in the direction of the Heaven Palace, where Venerable Lai Hua was stationed. Daring to destroy even the teleportation array, it seemed that the other party had come prepared. Arrogance! Wuxia roared, soaring into the sky, looking towards the distant black mist. This was the Qixin Temple, the base of his master Qixin. These natives actually dared to rebel. When he was opening up territories, he slaughtered many Tier 6 emperors. Although he only sent a law avatar, ordinary Tier 6 emperors could hardly escape his grasp. In the black mist, a figure flew out, with white hair and a cold face. It was the Bai Junwang. After arriving in Liuzhou, he first killed the Heaven Hall's lord, Lai Hua. Then, along the way, he destroyed all the teleportation arrays in Liuzhou. Sharo City was the last one. "It's you." Emperor Bai Junwang's expression changed drastically as he recognized the newcomer. However, after sensing it a bit, he realized it was just a divine body and burst into laughter. "The heavens are helping me. If you were here in your original body, you might be able to stop me, but you can't stop me with a mere avatar." Wuxia's gaze changed. The other party was right. At the pinnacle of strength, you, a dog of a fallen family, how could you enter the ranks of the pinnacle? Bai Junwang's eyes were cold. When he heard the term, dog of a fallen family, he laughed sarcastically. "Aren't you a dog of a fallen family too? Even the true gods have fallen. As a disciple, you're willing to accompany the old man. I'll lend you a hand." This statement dealt a severe blow to Wuxia. Regardless of the equality of their strengths, he attacked directly. "You're seeking death." At this moment, not only did the divine body utter these words, but the true self also broke through and appeared, with a pale yellow Taoist robe fluttering in the wind. The Elder Palace trembled. "Inform the White Tiger Temple immediately. There's a disturbance in Liuzhou." After leaving these words behind, Wuxia's true self vanished into thin air. Elemental Yang Lake was too far from the northern region in the central state. Even if he wanted to fly there, it would take hundreds of years. However, with the teleportation array destroyed, he could only teleport to the vicinity of Liuzhou. Crossing the entire Liuzhou was not difficult, as one day was sufficient. It was not difficult to cross the entire flow state. One day was enough. This rebellion was too powerful, with pinnacle-level experts. Besides him, there was another elder at the pinnacle level. However, he was currently discussing matters related to the northern region in the White Tiger Temple and was not in the Elder Palace. They were nowhere near the Elder Palace. They had to notify the White Tiger Temple. Only by joining forces could they suppress the Bai Junwang. The transcendent peak strength was beyond what an ordinary Tier 6 emperor could contend with. The avatar wouldn't last much longer. More importantly, he didn't know what Bai Junwang's goal was. Liuzhou. Currently, the most peaceful place was the Xianxia Palace. The people on the tide-viewing pavilion looked down at the ongoing battle, drinking and tasting the unique fruits of the Xianxia Palace. Little did they know that a terrifying existence would soon descend upon this place. Jian Wushuang received a message from Qiu Huang. The message was brief, only mentioning something about Wuxia going to Luzhou, asking if anything had happened there. While dealing with the sword leader, Jian Wushuang also sent messages to Qiu Huang. Yan Zhen clearly felt that Jian Wushuang was not taking it seriously. At once, his momentum erupted again. Respected friend, today I'll let you see what the Tai sword truly is. Yan Zhen extended his hands, and two long blades appeared in his grasp. When he attacked again, the power was boundless. Even Jian Wushuang felt the pressure. After casually responding to Qiu Huang, he focused on facing the challenge. The sword leader's strength was indeed extraordinary. Heaven's punishment. Since respect was demanded, he would give it. He intended to defeat the opponent with the purest swordsmanship, considering it a form of respect. Throughout the battle, he hadn't even used the extreme Dao. The seventh layer of the ultimate sword Dao, even if it was pure, it couldn't match the practicality of the extreme Dao. The power of all things was no joke. It could even kill emperors. Even though only a portion of the power of all things resided within him, it was sufficient to slay those native, weak emperors. Rumble. The sky roared, and the heavens' punishment triggered the power of spatial thunder, descending from the heavens. Yan Zhen also sensed that aura. When he attempted to retreat, it was already too late. He could only grit his teeth and confront Jian Wushuang head-on. He knew that Jian Wushuang's origin source was extremely powerful. Engaging in a direct confrontation in swordsmanship disadvantaged him, but relying on his unique skills, he still had a chance. After exchanging blows for such a long time, he had discerned quite a lot. Jian Wushuang had always been using the purest essence of swordsmanship, while Yan Zhen employed unique skills. The disparity between the two was significant, making him feel embarrassed. However, this time he had to take this sword no matter what, whether for himself or for the sect. This one sword might be the opponent's strongest move, with hopes of a comeback in the subsequent clashes. Indeed, this sword was Jian Wushuang's most profound realization in swordsmanship. The ultimate path, the seventh layer, crafted precisely for this purpose. Talent and imprisonment. In one breath, with no sword in hand, yet as if wielding a sword, there was a vast difference. Clang. A heavy impact erupted. Yong En's figure swept past, and both of his hands trembled. He managed to receive the sword, even breaking through in the urgency of the moment, delivering a counterstrike to Jian Wushuang. Interesting. Jian Wushuang stood tall in the air, slowly turning around. The heaven's punishment sword strike unexpectedly failed to sever his opponent. Instead, Jian Wushuang received a counterstrike. Seeing the trembling hands of the opponent, he found it somewhat amusing. A perfect transcendent physique isn't something easily shattered. The rebound from his physical body alone could dislocate and maim the opponent's arms. In terms of martial skills, he lost, but in terms of the origin source, he hadn't secured victory. This piqued Jian Wushuang's interest in this person. The heaven's punishment sword strike was his most potent weapon, but he hadn't claimed that it was his only one. Buzz! Around his body, a massive sword formation suddenly rose. The transcendent Immortal formation. 72 of the strongest swords appeared directly around his body. Although not entirely pure, utilizing thought power and the power of devouring, it wasn't overly unfair to the opponent. If he used the Heaven's Punishment Sword strike a few more times, he could defeat Yan Zhen, but doing so would be too uninteresting. This was a friendly match, and there was no need to be so decisive, leaving the opponent with no desire for a comeback. To leave the opponent with a hint of fantasy and then shatter it, that was the strategy. The aura has changed. Indeed, that sword move of his can't be used repeatedly. Yan Zhen rejoiced inwardly, hastily swallowing a pill to replenish his depleted physical and divine body. His Tai sword, a supreme technique, would not break as long as yen power flowed continuously. Just like the last time, he launched another surprise attack, heading straight for Jian Wushuang. Humph! Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, and the changes in his sword formation immediately ensnared his opponent. Transcendent Immortal. Transcendent Immortal. It was really to cut off the path of immortality and return to the mortal world. The grand formation sword intent reaching the sky. Yong'en, formidable though he was, couldn't break free and found himself trapped. On the tide-viewing pavilion, the Grand Elder's expression sank. The spectators see more clearly than those involved. They discerned that Jian Wushuang's condition had not changed in the slightest. His aura was even stronger than before. Conversely, Yong'en's strength was gradually diminishing. It seemed hopeless to turn the tide. They were not on the same level. Yet, Jian Wushuang gave his opponent substantial hope, keeping Yan Zhen in the best mindset to continue the confrontation. The emperors noticed this and began to re-evaluate Jian Wushuang, showing more respect to this mysteriously titled Tao Lord. Within the sword formation, Yan Zhen seemed like a headless fly. Jian Wushuang casually altered the sword formation, each time giving Yan Zhen a glimmer of hope, only to shatter it and provide another one. Repeating this process, Yan Zhen felt as if he had entered a maze. This could be considered a form of temnering. However, the Grand Elder's expression became increasingly unsightly. This was simply toying with Yan Zhen, an insult to the current sword leader of Xianxia Palace. Yet, with inferior background and insufficient strength, there was nothing they could do but swallow the bitter pill. Jian Wushuang stood outside the formation, hands crossed over his chest, calmly watching the leader within the sword formation. He wasn't toying with his opponent. As long as Yan Zhen could break through 36 swords, half of the formation, there was hope for another breakthrough. This opportunity justified the golden sword in his hands. The 13 Tai swords guarded their respective platforms until no one challenged them. After that, they received the golden swords in their hands, a reward for their efforts. Normally, this ceremony would be a reward for them, a chance for both fame and fortune. This time, not only was their reputation tarnished, but none of the golden swords remained. They were all given to outsiders. Ding! The identity token vibrated, and Jian Wushuang furrowed his brows slightly. Apart from Qiu Huang, only Hu Qing and Ji Chaoyang could communicate with him through the identity token. Could this vibration be all three of them trying to contact him simultaneously? With a thought power avatar appeared in front of the floating token in his origin source. Now, in his origin source, there were several avatars comprehending different aspects. Sword Dao, Extreme Dao, Xianxia Patriarch's origin source, Transcendent Immortal Array Technique, and even the spatial force above the candle dragon wings. His mastery of spatial origin source had reached a high level. Although it exceeded the norm for his current level, he didn't neglect it. Instead, he maintained a thread of consciousness, continuously comprehending. Once both Sword Dao and Extreme Dao were perfected, and he ascended to the Emperor realm, spatial origin source would be crucial to his realm. Falling behind now meant it would be difficult to catch up later. Looking at the identity token, Jian Wushuang's clone waved his hand lightly, and a series of messages appeared above. All of them came from Qiu Huang. The first one: pay extra attention. Wu Zhua is heading to Liuzhou, and it may be related to quickly return. Quickly return. Quickly return. Liuzhou is in chaos. Return quickly. Tell that old bastard Yang Sanmu to reply to my message immediately. This isn't a joke. Don't go to Sharuo City. Leave Liuzhou and find a big city to teleport back. The teleportation array is destroyed? Liuzhou in chaos? Jian Wushuang could hardly believe it. He looked up at the tide-viewing pavilion, where people were still enjoying their drinks, and there was no sign of chaos. But since Qiu Huang said so, coupled with the worry in his heart, he didn't dare to procrastinate and directly put away the immortal formation. This time he really couldn't play around. He had to hurry. The sensation in his heart became clearer and more intense. He couldn't afford to delay any longer. Heaven's punishment. Sphere cage. All things. Even his physical strength was brought into play. For a moment, a sword containing the power of all things burst out, shaking the heavens and making the entire space tremble. As the sword moves were unleashed, Elder Jujian on the tide-viewing pavilion directly flashed into the arena, blocking the stunned Yanzhen behind him. Then he left. At the moment he departed, a heaven's punishment sword strike descended, forming a massive cage that lingered for a long time. Jian Wushuang's figure instantly teleported away from the arena. The 13 Taipei swords, all defeated. This was the first time. Elder Jujian stepped forward, prepared to offer his congratulations. This time, Jian Wushuang didn't have time to exchange pleasantries with these people. After a few casual words, he quickly walked towards the old man with goat horns. "Senior Yang, let's go." His face expressionless, but deep down he was extremely anxious, directly communicating with Elder Yang through voice transmission. Elder Yang was initially puzzled. Jian Wushuang had mentioned leaving early, but was there a need to be in such a hurry? Jian Wushuang directly conveyed the information from Chihuang City to Yang Sanmu, fearing any delay. As soon as Senior Yang heard that the teleportation array was destroyed, he erupted immediately. His aura directly leaked out, causing the entire tide-viewing pavilion to tremble. Elder Jujian, after handing the last golden sword to Jian Wushuang, suddenly saw the old man with goat horns in such a state and was about to inquire about what had happened. The Xianxia Palace Master, sitting in the main seat, also stood up abruptly. This scene sent shivers down everyone's spine. These two forces were unexpectedly evenly matched. Were these two going to fight? Just because Jian Wushuang challenged the entire Xianxia Palace? Was there really a need for this? The crucial point was the imposing aura of the Xianxia Palace Master, a Tier 6 Emperor, which was unexpectedly on par with the Tier 5 Emperor, the old man with goat horns. Was the Xianxia Palace Master too weak? Or was the old man too strong? Elder Jujian, positioned between the two, thought they were about to engage in combat. He immediately transmitted his voice. "Uncle Master, there's no need for this." Before he could finish his words, he heard the voice of the Xianxia Palace Master. Not transmitted but directly spoken. "There's a disturbance in Liuzhou. Hurry. Open the Xianxia Tower and head north to Hanzhou for refuge." Simultaneously, on the back mountain of Xianxia Palace, a middle-aged man in a cyan robe, long white hair draped over his shoulders, broke through with a single sword. It was none other than the Patriarch of Xianxia. Having just received the message and sensing the aura, he rushed towards the source. An apex powerhouse. He yearned for a battle, but the entire sect couldn't stay here. "Leave with the disciples, don't mind me." His voice resonated like a bell. The Xianxia Palace Master's expression was concentrated. At tide-viewing pavilion, everyone, except Taoist Luyang, was shocked. Of course, even Taoist Luyang was surprised, but he only pretended not to be. The old man with goat horns paid no attention to these people. He promptly brought out an ancient boat, lifted off with Jian Wushuang in tow. Buzz! The strongest power began to spread throughout the ancient boat, and the fisherman sitting on the boat stood up directly. "Let's go!" The voice of the old man with goat horns was deep. Glancing back, taking another look at the people below, Jian Wushuang withdrew his gaze. This place would soon become ruins, and even the entire Liuzhou would be engulfed. Boom! The void shattered, and the power erupting from the ancient boat made the surrounding mountain ranges tremble. When the people below looked up in confusion, the ancient boat was still in place, but Jian Wushuang and the old man with goat horns were actually millions of miles away. This speed had exceeded the limits of space, even challenging the Tier 6 Emperor. It was beyond ordinary comprehension. However, the old man with sheep horns still felt pressure, emanating from within the city of Sharuo. The sun and moon shone brightly, two huge suns radiating light, spreading from Sharuo City, shaking the entire Liuzhou. Jian Wushuang turned his head to look back. In the dazzling light, there was a small black dot behind them. With a slight movement, his gaze deepened. It's him. That small black dot was none other than the Tier 6 Emperor, manipulating a damaged palace, trailing behind them. Although his speed was slower than theirs, he had not allowed the distance to widen. Jian Wushuang had sensed some intentions from the other party long ago, and now, trailing behind them, it raised suspicions in him. The teleportation array was destroyed, and there was a sudden upheaval in Liuzhou. The hidden secrets were probably related to his arrival and had a connection with that formidable figure from the demonic path. The ancient boat sped quickly. In just the time it took to brew a cup of tea, it had already left the scope of Xianxia Palace. At this moment, Xianxia Palace was fully prepared, with several eternal treasures rising into the air. Who would have thought that just an hour ago, Xianxia Palace was still in a state of peace with comings and goings, and now they had to flee directly. Venerable Lai Hua had fallen, and Sharuo City had been destroyed. The entire Liuzhou was going to be destroyed in an instant. Is this the ancient era? Indeed, it was brutal. You little devil from the demonic path. Yen Sanmu instantly turned around, and a third eye appeared fiercely on his forehead. Innate beast eye. No wonder he was named Yen Sanmu. Jian Wushuang momentarily looked dazed. In the sky, a giant human-shaped antelope appeared, its horns piercing through the heavens. You go on the ancient boat first. I still need to take someone with me. Yang Sanmu left behind these words. Before he could move, the avatar had already retreated hundreds of millions of miles. Just a moment ago, Wu's was avatar shattered, and that avatar fell in Sharuo City. Through the communication token, he had instructed Yen Sanmu in Xianxia Palace to take away a Dao lord of the Broly clan. Now, there was no choice but to go back. The ancient boat was entirely manipulated by the fishermen. Even after the old man with the goat horns left, the speed did not diminish. Jian Wushuang had no idea whom the old man with the goat horns was going back to fetch. Before he could inquire, the figure disappeared within the space. He casually took out a jade slip. Damn it! Jian Wushuang couldn't help but curse inwardly. Now, behind him, there were many emperors fleeing, and their speed was not slow. He had already encountered several. With so many people fleeing together, they were bound to be caught up with. Although he didn't know who the terrifying presence that destroyed Liuzhou was, he could sense the unparalleled horror in the opponent's aura. Once encountered, it would be death. The target was too conspicuous. He couldn't escape with this group of people. Understanding this, Jian Wushuang immediately commanded the fishermen, "Go to North Muzhangzhou." Heading north to Hanzhou was close to the border of Liuzhou but also more likely to be caught up. It was better to change direction and go to North Muzhangzhou, where a truly extraordinary powerhouse sat in command. Although not on good terms with the temple, they wouldn't stand by and watch others desecrate North Muzhangzhou. The fishermen standing at the bow of the boat paused for a moment. Then, as per Jian Wushuang's instructions, adjusted the direction. It would take at least a whole day to travel from this location to North Muzhangzhou. Taoist Lu Yang, who was following behind, manipulated the damaged ancient hall. Seeing the slight adjustment in the direction of the ancient boat, his eyes flickered. "Elder, are we not going to Hanzhou?" Zhu Bachi asked cautiously. Lu Yang nodded slightly and said, "Hanzhou is too close. Even if we go there, it's still fleeing. It's better to go to North Muzhangzhou, where there is the suppression of Guangmu Tianzuan. No one can offend there." Guangmu Tianzuan, a Tier 6 emperor who survived from ancient times, a former one of the 108 divine envoys who followed Qixin. Later, he settled in Qixin Temple but did not get along with the four temples. He had been sitting in his own lair in North Muzhangzhou ever since. Aren't you very interested in the golden sword? The kid in front has 12 golden swords in his hands. Lu Yang Taoist said with a sinister smile. 12 golden swords. Don't mention a Dao Lord sword cultivator, even a Tier 4 emperor would be envious. Could it be? Zhu Baxia quickly caught on. However, what he knew was only about killing and looting. Just now, when the old man with goat horns left, the two of them paid careful attention. Now, on the ancient boat in front, there was only Jian Wushuang. A Dao Lord, no matter how extraordinary, could he contend with a Tier 5 emperor? Zhu Bachi, being a giant in the demonic path, naturally carried a demonic nature in his temperament. He didn't care about the opponent's identity or background. As a Tier 5 emperor, Taoist Luyang valued not the golden swords on Jian Wushuang's body but Jian Wushuang himself. If he could capture Jian Wushuang alive and hand him over to that senior, he might receive substantial rewards and even have the opportunity to advance to the Tier 6 Emperor. And that ancient boat, he also coveted its existence, a top-tier spatial treasure. Its speed far exceeded that of an ordinary Tier 6 Emperor. Many Tier 5 Emperors did not possess such a rare eternal treasure. How could he not covet it? With the shock in Liuzhou, the death of an inheritor would probably go unnoticed. Luyang's face revealed a killing intent, and his speed increased once again. The ancient boat's speed was fast, but it was stable. Without the presence of the old goat-horned man, although the speed hadn't changed, it had lost the crucial element of security. Looking back again, the small dot behind had disappeared. Just as Jian Wushuang was about to relax, a dazzling black light suddenly struck. Boom! The dazzling light struck the ancient ship directly, producing a terrifying buzzing sound. Jian Wushuang's ears buzzed, and he only reacted after a while. Raising his eyebrows and looking back, Luyang's damaged ancient palace had somehow reached in front of him. In just a short while, it threw him behind again and rushed to the front. Although this terrifying attack could not harm him temporarily, his heart power was anxious. Hastily sending a message to the old goat-horned old man, Jian Wushuang found that the identity token had been locked. This crisis was too immense. Jian Wushuang didn't know what to do for a moment. The old goat-horned man had been gone for half a day, and there was still no sign. A bad premonition arose in Jian Wushuang's heart. If Yang Sanmu were to fall, he would be truly finished. The identity token was ineffective again. He could only rely on the aura of the ancient boat, praying that the old goat-horned man could find him. As for the sneak attack by Taoist Luyang, he had to rely on the ancient boat to endure it. Although he had a top-tier innate treasure armor and a body that underwent eternal indestructible 10 refinements, facing a peak Tier 5 Emperor was a different matter. A powerful being capable of destroying innate treasures with a single strike. If it weren't for the ancient boat, he would have been finished long ago. Faster. One chasing and one fleeing. The distance between the two sides is not very far, and the radiant attacks repeatedly hit the surface of the ancient boat. Fortunately, the speed hasn't dropped, but each attack causes the ancient boat to pause, wasting too much time. He is genuinely afraid that the terrifying presence behind him will catch up. The ancient boat was indeed very fast, but Luyang was still able to keep up with it. If that terrifying existence really descended, he would probably be able to catch up in an instant. The fear in his heart increased. He now believed that the terrifying existence was coming for him. If he had known that the 4 great secret realms were so dangerous, he wouldn't have come. He should have just stayed at the Elder Palace or returned directly to the original planet. If he had gone back then, there wouldn't be so much trouble now. Although the golden sword is essential, compared to his gains in the demon sealing space, it falls far short. The origin source in the golden sword, at most, allowed him to deduce the power of all things, then extract some useful sword Dao origin source, enhancing his current swordsmanship. Just a small benefit. For this little thing, he wouldn't be willing to die even if he fell. At the same time, inside the Elder Palace, a group of 10 6th-rank emperors, accompanied by a dense crowd of up to 5th-rank emperors, are ready for action. Now that the northern region's Liuzhou is in turmoil, and Lord Jinling has entrusted the northern region to us, it's time for us to resolve this ourselves. Of course, after discussing among the Tier 6 emperors, they divided into 5 teams, each with 2 Tier 6 emperors, their combined strength enough to rival the pinnacle. Although most of them were forcibly taken in the beginning, given the nature of the Qixin Temple, there were few weak individuals among the plundered strong. Even if they were not as strong as the absolute pinnacle, the combined strength of the two was formidable. Those Tier 5 emperors were at the peak level, comparable to ordinary Tier 6 emperors from the 4 great secret realms. Such a massive lineup would make even the White Tiger Temple feel pressured. I'll lead the first team to teleport to North Muzhangzhou, and the other teams will go to several nearby large states, suppress the disturbances and, in the process, rescue Jian Wushuang. The crowd answered in unison. Then they began the teleportation. The Elder Palace had not yet appointed a palace lord, but the influence of a dozen Tier 6 emperors was still formidable. Soon, they gathered a large number of powerful individuals from the Elder Palace and headed towards the northern region. Wuxia, on the other hand, ventured alone. He went to Hangzhou and exerted all his effort. It would take a day to travel from Hangzhou's teleportation array to Xianxia Palace. Unfortunately, Hangzhou only had one large city with a teleportation array. However, its strength was not weaker than Liuzhou's. There was only one supersect in Han State and only one major city. After the arrival of Wu's true body, he sat firmly on the back of the black snake, and his speed was several times faster than the ancient boat Jian Wushuang rode. As soon as a super-powerful figure appeared in Hangzhou, it disappeared after only a few breaths. This surprised the Tier 6 emperor from the supersect, who quickly sent a message to the White Tiger Temple, reporting the incident. Liuzhou was in turmoil, and Lai Hua was killed. The White Tiger Temple was already aware of this matter. In the past, such incidents were not considered major, and they would dispatch people to investigate and pursue the culprits at a leisurely pace. However, this time they did not act. Zhenling had just left the 4 great secret realms the day before, saying that the northern region was under the jurisdiction of the Elder Palace. They hadn't had time to evacuate the subtemples from various places when the unexpected incident occurred. Now, let alone asking them to go support. Not causing trouble already gave face to Zhenling Bai. He sat steadily at the top of the main hall, his tiger-like eyes revealing a coldness. Humph! A bunch of useless people. Although he was not very willing, he quietly dispatched a clone to the northern region. The reason why the White Tiger Temple was so resistant to the establishment of the Elder Palace was not just because of selfishness. They were created by Qixin and had no selfish desires at all. It was the White Tiger Palace's duty to manage the 4 secret realms well. If the establishment of the Elder Palace could make the 4 secret realms more stable, he would support it more than anyone else. Managing the 4 great secret realms was the responsibility of the White Tiger Temple. If the Elder Palace could be established to make these realms more stable, Jian Wushuang supported it more than anyone else. Just when things seemed to be settling down a bit, the Elder Palace was established, and the 4 great secret realms were acquired. Wasn't this just adding more chaos? The White Tiger Hall was unique among the 4 halls. Unlike the Vermilion Bird Temple, which could be managed well with just a few people overseeing the original realm, the White Tiger Temple had more treasures, yet fewer people, making it inherently less competitive. As for the Azure Dragon Temple, it was even more absurd. With just a continent as its territory, there were only 2 or 3 creatures above, and they were of no concern. Their duty was to engage in external battles, but given the current situation, where could they go to battle? The Black Tortoise Temple was even more outrageous. Ruling over 108 outer halls, equivalent to 108 higher worlds, where space was infinite but strong individuals were rare and treasures were not scarce. Originally, it was considered a relatively ordinary temple. However, the master of the Black Tortoise Temple, by some means, had recruited the Wind Demon, one of the 5 great demon lords, to join his ranks. Wind Demon was the calmest of the 5 demon lords. He was also good at creating puppets. Additionally, Xianwan, as the inheritor of the core forces within the Qixin Temple, had many treasures and legacies from the 3 divine masters, 18 divine generals, and 108 envoys, all left in the outer halls for him. He was entrusted with spreading them out, ensuring that the lineage would not be severed. However, over the years, Xianwan hadn't sent any of these treasures out. He had kept them all to himself. Using these treasures, he constructed 10 strongholds, each inhabited by puppets. If it weren't for the arrival of the Grand Yen Immortal trial participants, there wouldn't be a single living person in the outer hall. They would all be puppets. The strength of these puppets was remarkably formidable. Even the weakest among them had the power of a Tao Lord at its limit, comparable to an emperor. Some of the strongest puppets he had encountered could exhibit a Tier 6 combat power. These puppets could merge into groups of tens of thousands, unleashing endless might. Meanwhile, Xianwan controlled puppet legions spanning across 10 entire worlds. With such a colossal force, he lived the most comfortably within the Qixin Temple and dared to challenge even Jinling. Among the 4 main temples, the most constrained was the White Tiger Temple. While they claimed to control the 4 great secret realms, it was more accurate to say that the 4 great secret realms tightly gripped them. When the White Tiger Temple was initially established, there were only 9 individuals. Apart from him, there were 8 envoys. The remaining guardian deities couldn't be considered human. Initially left to watch over the 4 great secret realms, they turned out to be as inflexible as statues, incapable of any flexibility. Fortunately, he continuously recruited independent cultivators from the 4 great secret realms to settle in the White Tiger Temple, leading to the current situation. The establishment of the Elder Palace, with its intrusion into the 4 great secret realms, didn't bother him much, but he feared dissent from his subordinates. The control over the 4 great secret realms still relied on these people. Without the temple masters of those subsidiary halls, they wouldn't control these vast secrets. In the heavenly realm, things were relatively calm. However, in the Earth's secret realm, the savage ancient lands were engulfed in chaotic bloodshed, making it impossible to suppress the disorder with fewer people. Within the earthly realm, they established grand earth temples, even recruiting ordinary humans, yet they still couldn't effectively control the chaos. Every day was filled with battles and slaughter. Any surplus powerful beings in the heavenly realm would be sent to the earthly realm. However, over time, these individuals developed opinions. They were not puppets. He could manipulate them as he pleased. The powerful beings in the earthly realm were not fewer than those in the heavenly realm. The chances of those sent to the earthly realm falling were high, and gradually fewer dared to venture. It was challenging to recruit enough powerful beings in the earthly realm. He even recruited many special life forms from the divine tomb, sending them to the earthly realm. Though these creatures were ferocious, at least they obeyed him, aiding in suppressing the powerful beings in the earthly realm. Within the earthly realm, enormous secrets were hidden. His true self sat in the earthly realm at all times, with only 2 avatars in the heavenly realm. The rest of his forces were deployed to the earthly realm and the divine tomb. True tranquility lay in the mortal secret realms. There was no need for suppression. Only a few local powerful beings were necessary, and establishing the White Tiger Temple was sufficient. Through the teleportation array, Bai Yi's avatar directly arrived in North Muzhangzhou. This time, he wouldn't easily reveal himself. If push came to shove, he would step in. If the elderly palace could handle the situation on its own, that would be even better. However, in the northern region over the years, the astronomical number of teleportation arrays and treasures supplied was immense. Even if he wanted to let go of such a juicy piece of meat, his subordinates would not retreat so easily. The enormous expenses in the earthly realm required treasures from the heavenly realm. The cost of recruiting powerful beings was too high. Moreover, among the indigenous emperors, it was challenging to find those with extraordinary strength, and those with average strength couldn't control the situation. The strength of Venerable Lai Hua, in fact, was quite impressive, ranking among the top in Liuzhou. However, he was instantly killed, revealing the vast gap in power. Now, he needed to summon an immensely powerful emperor, not leaving the matter to the Elder Palace. This time, he specifically teleported to North Muzhangzhou for this purpose. Guangmu, a figure known as Tianzuan in ancient times, the true top-tier emperor. Being listed as one of the 108 divine envoys represented a figure of the Qixin Temple. Among the Tier 6 emperors, they were truly extraordinary existences. North Muzhangzhou. When it was relocated to the Qixin Temple, there was a vast mountain range, spanning 100,000 mountains continuously. Within these mountains, there were murky air currents, causing ordinary people to quickly lose their way when entering. Only strong cultivators who had achieved immortality could live there. Therefore, there were very few strong cultivators living in Zhangzhou, with only a handful of sects, not even a decently powerful cultivator among them. All of this was due to the presence of Guangmu Tianzuan. The threshold of the chaotic air currents he left behind in Zhangzhou was too high for ordinary folks. Most of the strong cultivators living here were outsiders seeking refuge. Surviving here was nearly impossible. His residence was deep within the air currents of Zhangzhou. Deep within Zhangzhou, on a towering divine mountain, there was an ancient grand hall. This was the Dao arena of Guangmu Tianzuan. Here, The air was extremely thin, and the hall was clear, devoid of any turbid air. Bai Yi descended, this body not geared for battle, clad in a simple white robe. The robust figure did not appear delicate but rather strong. "Brother Guangmu, are you so unwelcoming?" Bai Yi revealed a faint smile, gazing at the tightly closed grand hall. Crack! The grand hall slowly opened, and from within emerged a burly man with a dark golden robe. His eyes were deep-set, his nose high and prominent, and his jaw wide and sturdy. Bai Yi, T after exchanging a glance, both of them exuded a formidable aura. Guangmu, slightly surprised, spoke. "Do you really think that you can defeat me with just a clone?" "Ha ha, Brother Guangmu, you're giving me too much credit, and I didn't come to spar with you either," Bai Yi said with an awkward smile. Indeed, his divine body was not a match for Guangmu Tianzuan. After all, the latter was one of the 108 divine envoys. If Bai Yi's divine body proved inadequate, it would be a disgrace to his master. Before the fall of Qixin, their master had specifically instructed them regarding the treatment of those subordinates who hadn't fallen. They were to be treated kindly, not oppressed, not coerced, and allowed to leave at any time. Some individuals had managed to escape death, such as Wuxia. However, Guangmu Tianzuan was different. After being injured, he had slept in Xianxia and hadn't participated in the events that followed. When he woke up, Qixin had already fallen. He was unwilling to leave and refused to follow the arrangements of the four halls, choosing to stay hidden in this grand hall. Many years had passed since then. "Come in." Guangmu extended his hand, gesturing in invitation. After all, it was a relic left by Qixin, and Jian Wushuang wouldn't be too disrespectful, despite retaining some of his former pride. The two entered the grand hall and took their seats. Bai went straight to the point, outlining the current situation. The Zhenling revived, the highest trial commenced, and the Elder Palace was established. As for the upheaval in Liuzhou, it was a trivial matter not worth mentioning. Guangmu Tianzuan, hearing about the revival of Zhenling and inheriting many memories from Qixin, had a somewhat moist look in his eyes. As the messenger of Qixin, he felt guilty for not being by Qixin's side when he fell. Over the years, he had lived with this guilt, to the extent that he didn't venture out of Xianxia. He feared running into acquaintances and being ridiculed. Back then, the direct line of Qixin, all three godheads, and even the 18 divine generals had fallen. Some were completely gone, and others, severely injured, remained in a dormant state, yet to recover. Among the divine envoys, he was the sole survivor. When Qixin fell, the divine envoys, unwilling to live on, followed Qixin into the god's tomb, creating graves for themselves. And here he was now, living well, with no place to die even if he wanted to. Bai Yi, getting to the crucial point, immediately brought up the request to leave seclusion. "Brother Guangmu, the highest trial is meant to find an heir for the master. It's a rule set by the master himself. Now that the trial is starting and we are about to enter the four great secret realms, it's not suitable to conduct the trial when there is unrest in the realms." Although Bai Yi was usually impulsive, the 7 orifices Linglong heart within him was genuine. Xian Wan also possessed the wisdom required for such matters. Hearing about Qixin's last wish, Guangmu Tianzuan couldn't help but be moved. Surprised, Guangmu asked, "Unrest in the 4 great secret realms?" "Yes." Seeing an opportunity, Bai Yi continued, "The celestial realm had just stabilized not long ago, and in Liuzhou, a major change occurred. The teleportation array was destroyed, and the representative of Qixin's sect in the branch hall was killed on the spot. In addition, in the earthly realm, the Forest of Eternal Secrets recently experienced turmoil that almost destroyed the entire realm. It took Lord Zhenling's personal intervention to resolve the situation. However, not long after, problems emerged in the heaven realm again." As he spoke, Bai Yi couldn't help but bow his head, cursing himself for being useless and not completing the task entrusted to him by the master years ago. Failed to live up to the expectations of Qixin. Speaking of this, Bai Yi started talking again. The last words of Qixin, back in the day, entrusted him with taking care of the surviving seniors. Now he has to trouble Guangmu Tianzuan, which is a great disrespect to Qixin. Even Guangmu, unyielding as he is, couldn't help shedding hot tears upon hearing this. In ancient times, Qixin was truly unparalleled. When Guangmu was weak, his hometown was destroyed, and he wandered into another realm. The first force he joined was the sect under Qixin's command. He later became the sect master and eventually entered the service of Qixin. He had always been proud to be the true direct descendant and the core of Qixin. But now, the atmosphere inside the Qixin temple is so uneasy. How can he turn a blind eye to it? He stood up immediately. "Brother Bai Yi, these years have been tough on you." Guangmu's eyes were very sincere. Bai Yi didn't know if he was truly moved or if the grievances in his heart were too great. But he also burst into tears. Two peerless powerhouses, the pinnacle figures in the Qixin temple. Two big men cried like little girls. Their bond gradually deepened over time, and they talked for a long time before slowly getting up. El never expected that such a thing would happen in Flowing Province, hunting down inheritors. It seems that this force is deeply hidden in the four great secret realms. Guangmu's eyes changed, regaining a sharp look. Bai Yi paused before speaking. It's all my fault for not taking good care of the four great secret realms over the years. So many troubles have arisen. That force is like a shadow. No matter how hard we try, we can't eliminate it. He had been investigating that force for years, setting up the Tianzi Noel secret script. Unfortunately, every time he was about to discover the truth, it would suddenly disappear from the world. No matter how many powerhouses he mobilized to investigate, it was always in vain. The shadow sect in the earthly realm, the ghosts in the heavenly realm, and the divine master cult in the human realm. None could be completely eradicated. They were like a persistent patch. On the surface, these people might appear to be high-ranking members of various sects, but in secret, they were members of different organizations. After investigating for such a long time, he had identified two Tier 6 emperors, but no matter how much he pressured them or even probed their memories, he couldn't uncover the mastermind behind them. Their memories had been severed by the person behind them. No clues could be found at all. Guangmu Tianzuan shook his head and consoled. "It's not your fault. I've heard a rumor. When the four great secret realms were built, many different beings were suppressed underground, including some formidable ones. Perhaps these alien races are causing trouble behind the scenes." The construction of the Qixin temple almost tore apart a considerable section of the River of Time, causing the destruction of several universes. Of course, these destroyed universes belonged to some alien races. Bai Yi nodded in agreement, saying, "El thought of that too initially. However, according to the list left by the Master, there were no abnormalities in the areas where they were suppressed. They shouldn't have escaped. Could it be that someone among them broke through?" Thinking of this, the two exchanged glances, a chill running down their spines. If that were the case, this matter was not a trivial one. "This pursuit of the successor is an opportunity for us to investigate," Guangmu decided. The previous group's goal was to establish communication between the four great secret realms and then spread news about the god's tomb. Now, for the successor, it was likely a different group of people. Perhaps this was an excellent opportunity. For them to break through the barrier, they had never been this crazy before. Now, for a Tao Lord successor, they were going to extremes. Easily slaying a Tier 6 emperor indicated at least pinnacle strength. Even Wuxia's avatar had been killed, showing a strength comparable to Guangmu's. Someone this powerful was making a move. Perhaps they would soon unravel the truth behind the scenes. "Let's go." The two immediately left the main hall. Bai Yi was secretly delighted, not expecting that Guangmu would indeed join the fray. In Zhangzhou, there was only one city, established by outsiders, located near the border of Zhangzhou and Liuzhou. Through Jian Wushuang's aura, Bai Yi communicated with the headquarters of the Heaven Realm's Divine Temple, quickly pinpointing Jian Wushuang's location. Now he was frantically fleeing towards Zhangzhou. However, Yang Sanmu from the Elder Palace was not with Jian Wushuang at the moment. Now Jian Wushuang was on the run alone, being pursued by others. The people from the Tianmu sect. Bai Yi looked at the information on the identity token and took note of this supersect. To ordinary people, the Tianma sect was a super sect, but for him, a sect that could be wiped out by a single incarnation was considered insignificant even in ancient times. After this incident, he vowed to annihilate the Tianma sect. Brother Guangmu will hide here. I've already figured out the identity of the person in Liuzhou. He's an old and familiar character. Based on their speed, if we wait in this city, we definitely won't go wrong, Bai Yi said confidently. At the same time, he also dispatched a group of elite warriors from the White Tiger Temple, all of whom he had supported and nurtured. Over the years, he had cultivated many elite warriors, and there were still quite a few outstanding talents among the 4 great secret realms. He didn't have many treasures that were too heaven-defying, but he had a lot of treasures for nurturing emperors. Controlling the 4 great secret realms, except for Zhu Yi, he was the wealthiest. Moreover, Zhu Yi's treasures were not truly hers. If one were to consider personal treasures, he was the wealthiest. Every day, the amount of divine stones he earned through the teleportation array was astronomical. Over the years, not to mention the accumulated wealth, he had treasures and hidden treasures from various places that he couldn't even exhaust. If it weren't for frequent disturbances in various regions, his treasures would never be spent. Once, he directly dispatched 5 peak-level Tier 6 emperors, each a formidable powerhouse capable of rivaling the top experts. This was an extremely secretive force, with each member having their own sex. They wouldn't usually contact him, but in the face of major emergencies, they would disguise their identities and rush to his aid. Swoosh! In less than 15 minutes, this inconspicuous city was suddenly graced by the presence of 5 peak-level experts. Normally elusive Tier 6 emperors, all gathered at this location. However, the inhabitants of the city remained oblivious to the presence of these Tier 6 emperors. The strongest individuals within the city were nothing more than ordinary Tier 5 emperors. These 5 Tier 6 experts, each concealing their identities with wide, thick black robes from head to toe, had significantly altered their auras. Seeing Bai Yi on a loft in the city, they nodded in acknowledgement, then took their seats in a tea-house opposite the loft. 5 peak-level emperors, along with his own avatar and Guangmu Tianzun personally overseeing the situation. Even if the opponent possessed unparalleled strength, they would have to stay today. Now, they just needed the bait to bring that heavy rain. Buzz! As soon as they took their seats, a terrifying aura emanated from the teleportation array. 2 Tier 6 emperors, accompanied by over 100 Tier 5 emperors, abruptly emerged. This left the group of emperors who were overseeing the teleportation array almost collapsing in shock. The emperor presiding over the temple immediately contacted the headquarters, frightened to step out. There were 2 Tier 6 emperors, and over 100 formidable individuals comparable to Tier 6 emperors within this force. This power was more than enough to flatten several nearby large provinces. Bai Yi and his group had concealed themselves well, and the emperors from the Elder Palace hadn't noticed. Urgently heading towards Liuzhou, they didn't linger in this place. Once outside the city, they exerted all their efforts and rushed towards Liuzhou. Among these people, Guangmu recognized many. Some were even subordinates he had personally recruited, many of whom were his former defeated underlings. Watching them leave, Bai Yi shook his head. These thoughtless individuals, even if they went to Liuzhou with a large group now, wouldn't find Jian Wushuang. They had departed in the wrong direction. Jian Wushuang had fled from the southeast towards this large city, likely after consulting a map. Going to Hanzhou was closer, but the cities there were farther apart. Moreover, Hanzhou lacked strong individuals. Jian Wushuang likely chose to escape towards Baimu's Hangzhou because of the presence of Guangmu Tianzun. Bai Yi quickly deduced Jian Wushuang's intentions. Unfortunately, the strong individuals from the Elder Palace had not considered this. They couldn't contact Jian Wushuang now, nor could they find Yang Sanmu. All they could do was plunge into Liuzhou, searching aimlessly. At the same time, outside Sharuo City, Wu's avatar exploded, forming a massive barrier, trapping Bai Junwang for a full hour. The barrier consumed the power of at least 3 eternal treasures. After breaking free, Bai Junwang, using his keen perception, soared into the sky, transforming into a streak of light heading towards North Muzhangzhou. Jian Wushuang was now very close to Baimu Zhangzhou. If not for the continuous sneak attacks from Taoist Luyang behind, causing the ancient boat to pause, he might have reached Zhangzhou by now. In terms of distance, it seemed he would need at least another half-hour to reach Zhangzhou. After that, flying for just a quarter of an hour would bring him to the first major city in North Muzhangzhou, the only city with a teleportation array, Beishan City. Taoist Luyang, aren't you afraid that I will inform the White Tiger Hall about today's events? By then, you will have no place to hide in the 4 great secret realms, and you will surely perish. Jian Wushuang shouted loudly, looking back at the large hall behind him. If the opponent hadn't been launching sneak attacks, he could have been faster. Just moments ago, he sensed a tremendous threat, as if a fierce beast had broken through its cage and was rushing towards him. He was genuinely afraid that he would be caught by that terrifying presence before reaching Beishan City. The old man with sheep horns had yet to return, either fallen or entangled in something. Now he could only rely on himself, continuously waving the large flag to scare away Taoist Luyang first. Otherwise, he wouldn't even get to sit on the teleportation array. Now he was all alone, with no one to protect him. How to face this Tier 5 peak emperor? Luyang stood outside the main hall, with a pair of deep eyes looking at Jian Wushuang, arrogantly saying, "A wet-behind-the-ears kid like you thinks I'll be scared? Even if you make the temple's people hunt me down, you have to survive first." Bai Junwang had managed to trap Yang Sanmu, and now his own safety was uncertain. All he needed to do was to delay Jian Wushuang or capture him, offering him to Bai Junwang. In return, he would gain countless treasures and ascend to Tier 6. When the time came, he could find a secluded place, hide for hundreds of epochs until things settled, and he would be a Tier 6 emperor. He truly doubted whether the Divine Temple would hunt down a Tier 6 emperor for the sake of a Tao Lord. The Divine Temple should have a clear account of this matter. Moreover, Jian Wushuang couldn't send any messages now. Even if he were killed, no one would know it was him. With ample confidence, he didn't believe in Jian Wushuang's tactics. Seeing that words couldn't move the other party, Jian Wushuang didn't waste any more words. The only thing he could do now was pray for the return of the old man with goat horns, or hope that there were peak experts within the Beishan city to assist him. Otherwise, if he stopped, Luyang Daoist could instantly attack him and capture him alive. If he didn't stop and tried to take a teleportation array, flying on the ancient boat all the way to the central Elder Palace in the Middle Zhou region, it would probably take millions of years. Although Liuzhou was very close to the central state according to the distance on the map, he really couldn't reach it without a million years. This plan was not feasible. If he reached Beishan City and the old man with goat horns hadn't returned, he would have to continue escaping. Just as this thought occurred to him, the fisherman at the bow of the boat, with eyes glinting, turned his stiff head and said, "The master instructed me that when necessary, I will block all threats for you." Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was greatly pleased. He hadn't expected this seemingly ordinary puppet fisherman to have such a useful function. Thinking it over, the pursuer from behind was a Tier 5 peak emperor. He asked, "Can you withstand the person chasing from behind, a Tier 5 peak emperor?" "I can hold on for 10 breaths," replied the stiff fisherman. Jian Wushuang understood and said, "That's enough." He swore that the first thing he would do after returning to Yuanyang Lake was to ask Wu Zhuo to send him back to the original realm. 10 breaths were more than enough for him to enter the teleportation array and escape to the Yuanyang Lake. He swore that once he returned to Yuanyang Lake, the first thing he would do was have Wu Zhuo send him back to the original realm. He would not stay in the heaven realm for another moment. The journey was simply terrifying. Faced with opponents of that caliber, Jian Wushuang found himself powerless to resist, resigned to his fate. Escape seemed nearly impossible. It was an incredibly desperate situation. Running at full speed through space and time, he soon arrived at North Muzhangzhou. Somehow, upon entering North Muzhangzhou, the underlying sense of fear in his heart weakened significantly. Only 10 minutes left, almost there. Jian Wushuang focused his thoughts, keeping his strength at its peak. The demonic annihilation armor had already manifested on his body. The beast god domain also erupted in the next moment, with massive wings opening and closing. He was prepared to jump into the teleportation array at any moment. Taoist Luyang behind him was even more anxious. What is this kid thinking? Does he really believe that I won't dare to touch him once he enters Beishan City? Taoist Luyang swiftly took out a dark red pill, turning to Zhu Bachi and said, "If anything goes wrong later, take this pill. With the power of the heavenly demon technique, it will enable you to unleash the 8-armed demon." At that time, delay Jian Wushuang for a moment. Upon hearing the term 8-armed demon, Zhu Bachi's eyes lit up, nodding heavily. The 6-armed demon was already comparable to the 13 Taie sword. The legendary 8-armed demon was much stronger than the Taipei inheritance. In the history of the Tianma sect, those who could unleash the 8-armed demon body had already advanced to the Tier 6 emperor. As a Dao lord, being able to reluctantly unleash the 8-armed demon body, as long as he comprehended a trace of it, he could benefit immensely. Thinking about facing the extraordinary Dao lord Jian Wushuang, Zhu Bachi showed courage and meticulousness. After accepting the pill, he began preparing for the upcoming major battle. If everything went as expected, Jian Wushuang wouldn't stop, which was ideal. The one behind him would catch up soon. Although Zhu Bachi might not capture Jian Wushuang alive, guiding and marking the way would be sufficient to gain a substantial amount of treasures. If Jian Wushuang had any reliance and dared to set foot in this city, Zhu Bachi would make sure to detain him. As for the rumors about Guangmu Tianzuan, Zhu Bachi was aware of them but hoped they wouldn't turn out to be true. Calculating in his mind, Zhu Bachi knew the pursuer behind him would arrive in about a quarter of an hour. The distance from here to Beishan City was also approximately a quarter of an hour, leaving a gap of less than 10 breaths. He only needed to stop Jian Wushuang for 10 breaths to consider the mission accomplished. In his origin source, a golden token engraved with the character Shadow trembled. Faster! Jian Wushuang was also closing in quickly. They were about to reach Beishan City, entering a critical moment. Zhu Bachi wasn't sure about the fisherman's strength, but being able to withstand Taoist Luyang for 10 breaths indicated at least a standard power level of a Tier 5 emperor. A puppet at this level, fighting desperately for 10 breaths, had a good chance of success. The rest depended on his luck. In the distant southern region of Xianxia, beyond the countless spaces, a group of peak experts from the Elder Palace passed by Jian Wushuang and the others without detection. If Jian Wushuang had gone to Hanzhou, there might have been a chance encounter, but it seemed unlikely now. Zhu Bachi could only silently pray for Guangmu Tianzuan to intervene. Rubbing the jade tablet on his thumb, he could only rely on it now. As long as they had followed the Qishan, the peak experts should recognize this tablet. Seeing it would prompt them to lend a helping hand. Boom! Without waiting for him to contemplate, a black dazzling light struck again, interrupting his thoughts and causing the ancient boat to pause once more. Jian Wushuang stabilized his figure, turned to look behind, his gaze becoming unusually sharp. Humph! Tier 5 Emperor was nothing. As long as he succeeded in merging with the Dao, his combat power could probably reach the Tier 4 Emperor. With the strength of his formidable spatial origin source, it wouldn't take long for him to advance to Tier 5. With his origin source after reaching Tier 5 Emperor, dealing with a mere Tier 5 Emperor like Luyang would be as easy as flipping his hand. As long as he could leave alive, he vowed to avenge this grievance in the future. If he managed to survive and reported this assassination attempt, this Taoist Luyang would not escape death. Beishan City. The ancient city nestled in the mountains, though it lacked the imposing aura of Sharuo City. Despite having a Tier 5 emperor in the city, the defensive array was much weaker compared to Sharuo City. This area belonged to the borderlands, devoid of ordinary people, with only some refugee emperors and few Dao lords daring to venture here. Since the strong from the Elder Palace left this place, the powerful figures within Beishan City, upon hearing about the events in Liuzhou, had also started fleeing. Most of these individuals were emperors wanted by the Divine Temple, afraid to venture into other large states, so they could only escape deep into Xianxia with their heads down. The Divine Temple's control here was limited to a teleportation array, ignoring everything else. This was a face-saving measure for Guangmu Tianzuan. The emperors and Dao lords still daring to stay in the city were mostly those who thought themselves invincible or were clinging to a thread of hope. Liuzhou state was in a state of shock. Those who had escaped all went to Hanzhou. With the upheaval in Liuzhou, those who escaped went to Hanzhou. The origin of the turmoil in Liuzhou was unknown. Only rumors of a terrifying presence emerging and annihilating venerable Lai Hua. Subsequently, there was rampant destruction in Sheruo City, obliterating all teleportation arrays within Liuzhou's borders. This was obviously a purposeful visit. As long as they avoid flow state, would the other party dare to cause trouble in North Muzhangzhou? Although North Muzhangzhou was somewhat desolate and lacked formidable experts, the title of Guangmu Tianzuan resounded throughout the northern region, ranking among the top superpowers in the region. Even if the other party were to be reckless, they wouldn't come here to seek trouble, right? The current situation, however, contradicted the expectations of these individuals. In the murky sky, a black ancient boat traversed through. The emperor within the city, upon seeing the ancient boat, hadn't reacted in time. In the next moment, the ancient boat was right in front of him. This speed exceeded the limits of space, almost reaching a touch-and-go existence. As the ancient boat entered Beishan City, Taoist Luyang followed closely. He actually stopped here. It seems this kid does have some reliance. Luyang swept a cold glance over the city with icy eyes. The city lord was just an ordinary Tier 5 emperor and didn't dare to act rashly in front of him. The emperors stationed by the temple in this city were only Tier 4. Even if he killed them, he would at most escape for a few hundred epochs, spend some treasures, and settle things to absolve himself of guilt. When they were still 1,000,000 miles away from the teleportation array, Jian Wushuang roared, "Now is the time! Stop him!" After leaving this sentence behind, he flashed down from the ancient boat, his 10th refined physique erupting completely, transforming into countless pitch-black lines, flying towards the teleportation array. A transformation into myriad forms. This was the supreme physique. In extreme situations, both his origin source and divine body could be severed and transformed into countless entities. Even if the emperor wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be so simple. As his figure just left the ancient boat, the fisherman's form changed, pulling out a long knife from behind. Facing the pursuit of Taoist Luyang, he faced death without fear. Say 10 breaths, then it's 10 breaths. The ancient boat was forged in ancient times, obtained from the wind demon by the fisherman, with strength comparable to a Tier 5 emperor, and fearless in the face of death. When Yang Sanmu brought him here, it was originally intended toward the protection of the younger generation. Later, in a great crisis, the fisherman was placed on the ancient boat and became a permanent member. Taoist Luyang saw the fisherman blocking his way and jumped down from the damaged hull. "You go and stop Jian Wushuang. Hold him off for 3 breaths for me." His voice was very confident. Just 3 breaths, and he would kill the puppet in front of him. Hum! From the damaged hull, black mist leaked out, breaking through the air. The fisherman tried to intercept, but was smashed aside by the 6-armed heavenly demon formed by Taoist Luyang. "Explode for me!" The demon formed by Taoist Luyang was vast and mighty, shattering the void with a punch. 6 arms unleashed tens of thousands of punches in an instant. The fisherman's violent sword technique struggled to resist, but still took several punches, and the protective treasures on his body shattered. Taoist Luyang sneered, saying that 3 breaths were too long. 2 breaths were more than enough. A puppet without even an eternal treasure, weak and pitiful in strength. How could it withstand him? Swish! In the next moment, 6 unyielding demon thorns appeared in his hand, shining brightly with infinite radiance. It's that Taoist Luyang, the city lord of Beishan City, who dared not come out of the city lord's mansion, saw the battle in the sky and revealed a look of astonishment. Taoist Luyang's strength was terrifying. Although they were of the same rank, there was a vast difference in their abilities. He couldn't stop him if he went out, so he could only report and wait for the people from the divine temple to come. At the same time, Jian Wushuang had already reached the outer area of the teleportation array, shouting loudly as he fled. Not the inheritor of the Grave God Mountain, Quickly inform the White Tiger Temple and request reinforcements. Hidden in the shadows, Bai Yi and Guangmu Tianzuan exchanged a glance, secretly amused. At a time like this, he's still raising big flags. This inheritor really fears death. Just as Guangmu was about to say something, upon closely examining Jian Wushuang, he noticed the pale green jade tablet, and his eyes contracted suddenly. What is this? Bai Yi beside him also noticed this. Both of them couldn't believe it, especially Bai Yi. How could the personal belonging of the Qixin appear here, and in the hands of an inheritor? If he remembered correctly, this tablet should have entered the divine tomb with the Qixin. How could it appear here? Looking at the aura above, the two of them confirmed that it was undoubtedly an item of the Qixin. How does he have this thing? They both exclaimed simultaneously. Guangmu Tianzuan wondered how Jian Wushuang could possess it. Could he be the Qixin's direct disciple? But the highest trial has just begun. Even if it's fast, it wouldn't have given the personal belonging of the Qixin to a Tao Lord. Bai Yi wondered how this tablet could come into existence, clearly having entered the divine tomb. Could it be? He secretly speculated in his heart, thinking of Jinling's revival and the several times he had been to the divine tomb. When he thought of this, he almost cursed. Isn't the treasure of the Qixin temple enough? They even won't let go of the possessions of the old master. Indeed, they harbored rebellious intentions. Just as Guangmu stood beside him, he dared not speak out loud. After this incident, he was determined to go to the origin source sea and ask Jinling what was going on. Even his old face was disregarded. A person monopolizing the origin source sea, enjoying it every day, casually altering trials. Not to mention these, now even the god's tomb dared to be touched. Is there still any justice? Bai Yi, my old friend. Who is this person? Guangmu was completely unaware of the matter with the grave god mountain. Bai Yi's expression changed, and for a moment, he didn't know how to answer because he was also unclear. If he wanted to ask, he would have to inquire with Zhu Yi, who was in charge of the original realm. The inheritors had not yet been selected, and they had not even entered the 4 great secret realms. As for why this inheritor could be here, he knew the reason but was unaware of the person's identity. He could only vaguely say, El heard that he has some connection with the Mountain Lord, and he was moved by Jinling to the 4 great secret realms. While the two were chatting casually, Jian Wushuang had already arrived at the teleportation array. With a casual wave, he took out several treasures, each worth around tens of thousands of godstones. Quick! Activate the teleportation array. Anywhere will do, he said as he headed straight for the teleportation array. However, the emperors were not fooled by this. Although the city was in chaos, emperors were fighting, they dared not release anyone without orders from above. Especially Jian Wushuang, a Tao Lord, they couldn't let him go. If it were the 2 figures in the sky, they might have had to comply. Buzz! A barrier blocked Jian Wushuang's path, and a black-robed emperor stood in front of him. Humph! A mere Tao Lord dares to be arrogant. Capture him for me! Jian Wushuang's face twisted, and seeing that the fisherman was about to collapse, the damaged hull behind him also caught up, and he was intercepted. Just one breath was all he needed to be transported away. But now they refused to activate the transmission array for him. You! He was so furious that he couldn't even speak. Kid! I've already sent a message to the Divine Temple. They say there's no record of someone like you. You better behave, said the black-clad emperor without lying. They had already transmitted the message to the White Tiger Temple when the Elder's Palace arrived. However, Bai Yi intercepted them in advance, instructing them to seal off the transmission array, ensuring that not a single person could escape. Now, without the ancient boat, Jian Wushuang had nowhere to run. The only way out was through the transmission array. You're seeking death, Jian Wushuang roared, his origin source transforming into a long sword in his hand. Facing a mere black-clad emperor with second-tier strength, he had no fear. Confronted by a Tao Lord and feeling threatened, the black-clad emperor was also infuriated, shouting, Arrogant! Zhu Bachi, standing in the partially destroyed ancient hall, witnessed all this with hidden delight. Now, there was no need for him to intervene. Nevertheless, he descended from the hall, preparing to take advantage of the situation to ambush Jian Wushuang. He couldn't afford to be careless. If Jian Wushuang escaped, he would have a hard time explaining, not to mention the 12 golden swords on Jian Wushuang. Sensing only Zhu Bachi behind him, Jian Wushuang calmed his emotions. Engaging in a battle with this emperor now would not be advantageous for him. If he weren't being pursued, he would have considered ending this black-clad emperor with a single stroke. The opponent's spatial origin source wasn't as powerful as his own. Although his sword path origin source was not yet perfected, he was confident in dealing with this half-baked emperor. This second-tier emperor heavily relied on treasures, not much different from those first-tier emperors outside. At present, his strength included a 10,000-fold divine body, a superior 10 refinements physical body, and the ultimate sword Dao at the 7th level. His extreme Dao had also entered the 6th level, and the power of devouring had reached its peak. Below the level of emperor there was no threat. Even among emperors, those below the 3rd tier would find it challenging to pose a threat to him within the 4 great secret realms. Facing the black-robed emperor, Jian Wushuang snorted coldly, instantly turning his figure and charging towards Zhu Bachi behind him. Zhu Bachi was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected Jian Wushuang to turn back. He immediately burst into a 6-armed demonic form. His divine body also surged to 10,000 times its normal state, reaching a level equivalent to Jian Wushuang. However, despite his transformation into a 6-armed demon, his physical body was only at the level of a high-grade physique, not on the same level as Jian Wushuang. As for the origin source, it was even more incomparable, like a giant facing a dwarf. Heaven's punishment descended in an instant, a sword soaring into the sky. Zhu Bachi struggled to resist, but his 6 arms burst open, unable to withstand the onslaught. How can he be so strong? Whoosh! He hadn't expected that. Even in a head-on confrontation, he couldn't withstand a single move from Jian Wushuang. His dorsal fins surged as he swallowed a dark red pill, instantly regrowing 2 arms. 8-armed heavenly demon. His divine body and physical strength doubled again, but the origin source remained unchanged, with limited improvement. Fortunately, he barely managed to block this sword move with great difficulty. The next moment, before he could react, Jian Wushuang was already behind him. The eerie agility and speed of Jian Wushuang's movements made him completely unaware. Splurt! A blood-drenched arm pierced through his chest. Devour! Jian Wushuang's fist, infused with the power of devouring, surged like a torrential flood, entering Zhu Bachi's body and instantly disintegrating him. To kill such a small fry, he had already given the opponent some face with just 2 moves. If they knew he could still improve, he would have rushed forward long ago and smashed Zhu Bachi's head with a punch. The sight sent shivers down the spine of the black-robed emperor. In the next moment, several emperors rushed out to guard the teleportation array. Splash! A large amount of origin source was devoured by Jian Wushuang, and incidentally, he also obtained a portion of ancient demonic attack from Zhu Bachi's origin source. The demonic incarnation, a supreme technique that strengthens both the divine body and the physical form. Such a technique was unheard of in the outside world, and even upon entering the Qixin temple, he had not gained any supreme techniques until now. This could be considered his first. However, there was no time to dwell on this now. Casually putting away Zhu Baxia's sumaru sack, he looked towards the distant sky where a fierce battle raged. He had nowhere to escape now. The fisherman had already withstood 3 breaths, but his own body had shattered. The demonic piercing cone relentlessly struck his body, causing the core inside him to vibrate. Despite this, the puppet could still maintain its peak combat power. The puppet created by the wind demon was indeed extraordinary. Damn thing perish! Lu Yang attacked ferociously while keeping an eye on the teleportation array. Seeing Jian Wushuang standing in despair outside the teleportation array, he felt completely at ease. However, for the sake of safety, he remained vigilant. Unleashing his trump card with the force of thunder, he disintegrated the puppet fisherman. With 6 arms, he grabbed the limbs and head of the fisherman, staring at him with a fierce gaze, saying in a sinister tone, I want to see how sturdy you really are. Sizzle. After a tearing sound, Lu Yong roared, tearing the fisherman into fragments. Then, 6 hands merged into one. A dazzling light flashed, and in the sky, there was no longer any trace of the fisherman. It ultimately turned into ashes. Only the ancient boat remained. 5 breaths. The situation unfolded much as he anticipated, though only half as the fisherman predicted. This is the difference between puppets and living beings. The strength of puppets is fixed, while life holds infinite possibilities. Facing Taoist Lu Yong, Jian Wushuang was not prepared to accept death willingly. Now, with no more tricks up his sleeve, he had no choice but to fight to the death. Moreover, that terrifying presence was closing in, just a few breaths away. Today, he would undoubtedly stay in this place. If he truly fell, the one responsible for his demise would not be anyone else but the emperors of those temples. A vein throbbed on his forehead as Jian Wushuang's anger surged. Lu Yong Taoist instantly arrived, looking at Jian Wushuang with a mocking smile. What's this? Can't accept it? Going mad? What a joke. For safety's sake, he didn't take the initiative against Jian Wushuang, but rushed into the teleportation array, causing wanton destruction. The teleportation array here was only the lowest grade with average defenses. It would be completely destroyed after a few strikes. Against Taoist Lu Yong, Jian Wushuang had no confidence and lacked the ability to retaliate. However, when it came to the black-robed emperor who blocked his way, he was fully confident. I'll start with you. Jian Wushuang's face turned as lifeless as a corpse, now a pale yellow. Facing Lu Yong, the black-robed emperor dared not resist and could only retreat to the side. Some timid emperors were already rushing towards the temple. The formations there were even more powerful, and their duty was to guard the teleportation array. Now that the array was destroyed, there was no need to stay. They just had to report this matter back to headquarters. Among the black-clad emperors scattered around, there was the one who had previously intercepted him. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang's figure vanished into the space and, in the next moment, reappeared in front of that black-clad emperor. What do you want? The black-clad emperor exclaimed angrily. Lu Yong went insane. Unable to stop them, they could only choose to leave. Now Jian Wushuang unexpectedly blocked him. Jian Wushuang's face twisted into a grimace, like an evil spirit, and he said coldly, "You tell me what I want." Boom! A faint thought power scattered and, in the next instant, burst instantly. One thought universe. It had been a long time since he exerted full force. In the demon-sealing space for thousands of years, he had been suppressed for a long time. After coming out, he hadn't encountered a decent opponent. Now facing that black-clad emperor, it was a good whetstone. Before dying, pull someone down with you, not too much to ask. Splash! The transcendent immortal formation, accompanied by thought power, emerged. It was the current #1 weapon for restraining enemies and also his strongest battle formation. With the Sword Dao raised to the 7th level and the Extreme Dao to the 6th level, using the Transcendent Immortal Formation could unleash 720 swords. 720 of the strongest phantom swords floated around. Annihilate them for me! Jian Wushuang roared in anger. The black-clad emperor wanted to resist but was already unable to retaliate. Surrounded by the sword formation, he had no chance at all. You dare to kill me? I am a guardian of the divine temple. The black-clad emperor was unwilling. He had never expected Jian Wushuang to be so powerful, actually able to suppress him. One Dao Lord. How could he be so formidable? This scene also surprised Taoist Lu Yong. It's not uncommon for Dao Lords to slay emperors. However, such acts usually involve Tier 1 emperors or those who are already injured. But now, Jian Wushuang had killed a Tier 2 emperor, and the opponent was still in top form. This was unbelievably powerful. No wonder it attracted the attention of the peak figures of Shadow Traces, prompting them to expose their identities and come all the way to confront him. Bai Yi and Guangmu, hiding in the shadows, were not particularly astonished by this. Bai Yi was a puppet and was indifferent to such matters. As for Guangmu, having lived in ancient times, he had encountered numerous extraordinary Dao Lords, and there were even some emperor-level beings who were more astonishing than this. Moreover, most of the strong figures in the four great secret realms now were descendants of the ancient era, with varying levels of strength that fell far short when compared to true ancient cultivators like him. Comparing himself to others of his level, Guangmu could easily dominate within the four great secret realms. However, in the ancient era, there were many ancient cultivators stronger than him. Although the Qixin lineage was powerful, it couldn't completely represent the ancient era. In the realm of emperors, the truly invincible beings were those divine generals. The strength of the 108 envoys could only be considered at the pinnacle, while the divine generals represented the symbol of invincibility. Under the vast cosmos, when divine generals intervened, there was nothing that couldn't be resolved. Each of them was an ultimate emperor, possessing unparalleled strength. In the current external world, despite the absence of powerful legacies, there were quite a few ultimate beings. According to what Bai Yi mentioned, there were over 1,000 ultimate Tao lords in the four great secret realms, and within the original realm there were more than 200 ultimate beings. So many masters of the ultimate Tao, accumulated over countless years in the ancient era, were now distributed in this way. Unexpectedly, the external world now harbors such formidable generative power. What they didn't know was that the external pressures were immense, forcing the primal universe to give birth to powerful entities for its own preservation. As for the over 1,000 ultimate Tao lords, they practically swept clean hundreds of universes in the vicinity to gather this small group of people. Treated as treasures by Jinling, they were hidden on a small island in the Yuanyang Lake. Similarly, they underwent some inheritances, bypassing the previous trials. Among them were some Yan immortals who had just grasped the ultimate Tao. It wasn't suitable to send them directly to the outer hall, so they were left in the four great secret realms. Guangmu Tianzuan looked at Jian Wushuang with some emotion. It was no wonder he had obtained the personal belonging of the Qixin. His strength was unexpectedly extraordinary. Even in ancient times, he would have been nurtured as a prince. The black-robed emperor finally turned into ashes, leaving no trace of breath behind. Ever since Jian Wushuang stepped into the seventh layer of the ultimate sword Tao, some structures within the immortal array gradually became less suitable for him. However, there hadn't been much time for improvements. Now it seemed that he wouldn't have the opportunity for that anymore. The towering demonic incarnation of the heavens destroyed half of the Beishan city. The city lord, who presided over this place, had long fled to the depths of Xianxia with his people, afraid to show his face, fearful that Luyang would go mad and slaughter him too. Crack! Jian Wushuang's body, pushed to the limit, radiated a colorful halo. Taoist Luyang, I have no grudges with you. Why push it to this extent? Although he suspected Luyang's identity was extraordinary, possibly a force opposing the Qixin temple, he had no other choice. He hoped the other wouldn't directly strike, believing that if he could stall for time, miracles might happen. Zhenling had given him the jade tablet of the Qixin. There should be significant value in him. If he could delay for a while, perhaps Zhenling would appear. Daoist's 6 sons crushed some black emperors into pieces. He looked Davin at Xiao Budian with a ferocious expression. Daoist Luyang casually crushed some remnants of the black-robed emperor. The towering figure looked down at the tiny Jian Wushuang, revealing a hint of ferocity. Jian Wushuang, don't play tricks. Even if the divine temple master comes today, he won't be able to save you. Luyang's voice was extremely sinister. He was extremely loyal to the Shadow Sect and had great expectations for them. He hoped that one day, the Shadow Sect would defeat the Divine Temple and truly control the 4 great secret realms. From this perspective, Luyang's understanding of the Qixin Temple was not deep enough. As soon as Jian Wushuang heard the mention of the Divine Temple Master, he immediately thought of the 4 temples mentioned by the old man with the goat horns. In the original realm, it was Zhu Yi's territory. Here was the territory of White Tiger Temple. Taoist Luyang, don't let yourself be deceived. The 4 great secret realms are not what you imagine. The Temple Master is not the strongest in the 4 great secret realms. There are even more powerful beings. He was right. The 4 great secret realms truly did not belong to the White Tiger Temple. The true controller was Zhenling. Taoist Luyang had been a member of the shadow sect since he was weak, and he couldn't be intimidated by this. He sneered, "Arrogant kid. Just because you come from the God's Tomb's secret realm, don't think you've seen enough. I understand the heavens better than you." As he spoke, he pointed to the sky above. The strength of the shadow sect, in Liang's eyes, was beyond the imagination of a Tao lord like Jian Wushuang. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang understood that the other party was a fool, like a trapped beast in a cage, ignorant of the vast world beyond. Ignoring strength, Jian Wushuang knew much more than Taoist Luyang. At the very least, he knew this place was the Qishan Temple. The outside world was vast and boundless, while this place was like a birdcage. Boom! In the distant sky, a white-haired man moved at an extremely fast speed, much faster than the ancient boat. Just as Jian Wushuang sensed the opponent, the man had already arrived in front of him. Looking at the man before him, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but tremble. The aura was terrifying, comparable to Shan Jun, although Shan Jun had been injured and suppressed, so his true strength might not have been revealed. White hair. Surprise flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. White hair wasn't crucial. What mattered was the aura, surprisingly similar to his. Was the other person also in possession of a supreme physique? Inheritor. The newly arrived by Junwang's eyes revealed greed. The similarity in physical bodies made him instantly understand that the inheritor in front of him also possessed the supreme physique, even more perfect than he had imagined. Bai Junwang looked up to the sky and laughed heartily, not hiding his greedy expression. Heaven is truly helping me, a transcendent physique, a complete Tao. Once he took over this air, he would become even stronger than he was now. Currently, he relied on external forces. Although his physical body was perfect, and his origin source was comparable to the ultimate, it was still limited, only lasting for a short 3 days. After seizing the inheritor, as the divine being had stated, he would gain everything from the inheritor, including the origin source, divine body, and even the physical body. Standing on the side, Taoist Luyang, upon seeing Bai Junwang, though not recognizing him, knew that a senior from the shadow sect had arrived. I am Luyang, the 14th generation of disciples of the shadow sect. I greet the senior. Taoist Luyang retracted his demonic transformation, resumed his original appearance, knelt on one knee, clasped his chest, and showed deep respect. Bai Junwang wasn't particularly interested in him. He just nodded and casually tossed a sack to him. Inside were many treasures, but compared to Jian Wushuang, they were nothing. If there were no such rules, Bai Junwang could easily kill him, saving a substantial amount of treasures for himself. Wouldn't that be better for his future? The difference lay right here. Jian Wushuang watched everything, his eyes filled with despair. Seeing the look in the other's eyes, he knew there was no chance for a quick and painless death. This place is not suitable for a long stay. Follow me. Bai Junwang stayed only for 2 or 3 breaths. He didn't have much time to spare. The retreat route had long been planned, and leaving now was the best option. Along the way, they didn't encounter any strong individuals from the temple. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes slightly. This time he was doomed. At this moment, he let go of resentment, harboring no hatred towards others but blaming his own lack of strength. He had to admit that his luck had been good enough, overcoming numerous difficulties and dangers to achieve his current success. If he were to fall this time, so be it. With his heart power reaching the 5th level, he faced the situation more calmly than the emperor. One life, countless calamities. This lifetime was sufficient, and if given another chance, he would spare no effort. Just as despair engulfed him, a faint aura surged, reaching this place in an instant. Bai Junwang, you probably won't be able to take him today. Bai Yi and Guangmu stepped forward side by side, surrounded by 5 Tier 6 emperors converging from all directions. Buzz! The 5 emperors in black robes instantly erected a large array, enclosing them all. Guangmu Tianzuan roared in anger, his figure swelling, and his enormous eyes illuminating the heavens and earth. Bai Yi, clad in silver armor, brandished a long knife that emitted a world-destroying aura. Upon realizing they were surrounded, Lu Yong immediately panicked. Bai Junwang also revealed a surprised look. He had failed to detect Bai Yi's ambush, which was unexpected. However, upon realizing that Bai Yi was only in his avatar form, he relaxed. A mere law body, just as foolish as Wuxia. As soon as he spoke, a fierce battle erupted. Boom! A vast black robe swept out, instantly engulfing him and Lu Yong. Meanwhile, an earth-shattering battle unfolded in the outside world. Bai Junwang, fighting against 7 emperors alone. Among them, the strongest, Guangmu Tianzuan, reached the pinnacle of strength. However, compared to Bai Junwang, he was still slightly weaker. There was a significant disparity in origin source and divine body. Bai Junwang's origin source had already dried up, and what he injected now was the origin source of myriad Daos. Simply put, it wasn't his original source, diminishing his power with each use. However, a divine body that was 68,000 times stronger was the real deal. If he faced Guangmu alone, he might escape, but there was also Bai Yi's avatar by his side. Don't be fooled by its status as an avatar. Its combat power was close to the peak. If the avatar is this powerful, how formidable is the true body? No wonder the divine being had informed him that encountering Bai Yi's true body meant escape for his life. There was no mention of whether a battle was possible. The other 5 emperors with unknown identities, when combined in a formation, could rival the strength of peak-level experts. A total of 3 peak-level combatants. In the Divine Tomb, those powerful special beings, though not all at the peak, some reaching the Tier 6 were only of ordinary strength, stronger than these flesh and blood beings, but not by much. The other 5 emperors were manageable. They only formed a battle formation, capable of trapping him but unable to suppress him. In a one-on-one scenario, it only took 3 to 5 moves to break through. Bai Junwang's eyes flashed, and his figure suddenly turned straight toward the formation formed by the 5 emperors. A bunch of fools. Boom! Bai Junwang threw a punch, directly shaking the formation. When he tried to pursue again, Guangmu Tianzuan and Bai Yi instantly attacked, forcing him to give up. To break the deadlock, he had to deal with the weakest first. He gritted his teeth, resisting the 2, determined to break the formation. Bai Junwang, whose divine body almost surpassed the emperor's limit, expanded to millions of miles, covering the sky. With a grasp of the void, an overbearing might permeated. Shatter! The word seemed to command reality, directly breaking the formation. The 5 emperors spat blood and retreated. The goal was achieved. All that mattered was to crush them. There was no time to finish them off now. Bai Yi's eyes gradually chilled. This time he miscalculated. He had overestimated the Elder Palace, thinking he could take advantage of the situation or tie up loose ends. Unexpectedly, the opponent was so powerful that he found himself in a predicament. Unable to suppress Bai Junwang from the start, now only he and Guangmu Tianzuan remain, and the chances of keeping the other side are very slim. If I had known, one would have brought both of my avatars. Now I have to waste a precious treasure just to take him down. Bai Yi lamented. Upon hearing this, joy flashed in Guangmu's eyes, and he quickly spoke. Brother Bai Yi, use the treasure quickly. This guy's origin source is too mysterious. Delaying will only bring changes. As he said, Bai Junwang's origin source grew stronger with each battle but was also diminishing. If they dragged it out, both of them might not survive. Among the envoys of the gods, the opponent's strength ranked among the top, and the 2 of them were not a match. If Bai Yi's true self came, they could take down the opponent, but now with only an avatar, it was slightly stronger than Wu's avatar, essentially not playing a significant role. Killing some native emperors in the 4 great secret realms was feasible, but facing these old guys was not so simple. All right, please hold him off, Brother Guangmu. I need a bit of time, Bai Yi said in a low voice, and a round ball appeared in his hand. A layer of frost covered the top. This was the first sect of the northern region, the top grade eternal treasure that came first, and it was also a disposable treasure. Once used, it would be gone. There was no time to lament at the moment. After saving Jian Wushuang this time, He must find Zhu Yi to demand another treasure to compensate for his loss. He didn't want Zhu Yi to have so many treasures. Facing by Junwang, who was billions of miles high, Guangmu Tianzuan's eyes were disdainful, looking at the other party with great anger. Traitor, have you forgotten who your master is? How dare you cause trouble here? As an envoy of the Qixin, Guangmu Tianzuan was extremely dignified. Although his strength was a bit inferior to the other party, his momentum was extremely fierce. Bai Junwang didn't buy into his act. Although he was a little stunned at first and a bit frightened, he thought about how long it had been since the Qixin had fallen, and he sneered, "Just a useless dog who refuses to be buried with me. What are you pretending for? If your master cared, would you be here? You're just abandoned trash from ancient times, still daring to act like a mad dog in front of me. El roamed the ancient times long before you were born." A string of insults pierced through Guangmu Tianzuan's heart, infuriating him to the core. He soared into the sky, his anger reaching towering heights. "You seek death," roared Guangmu Tianzuan. The two clashed, and in an instant, their powerful aura spread throughout Zhangzhou, shaking the entire mountain range of 100,000 peaks. Splatter! A shock ran through Guangmu's heart as a powerful origin source attacked, injuring him unexpectedly. "Haha! Guangmu, dare you face a battle against a divine body?" Taunted by Junwang. Although he had just launched an origin source attack, he was now running on fumes. The strand of origin source he had left was nearly depleted, while the divine body could only be sustained for 3 days. The origin source wouldn't last even a moment now. Guangmu Tianzuan's expression turned serious as he coldly declared, "Not to mention a punch, I'll take your life." "Humph! Arrogant." Bai Junwang showed a hint of disdain. Guangmu Tianzuan didn't seem afraid to run his mouth. With a divine body 68,000 times stronger than the special life forms in the god's tomb, Bai Junwang's full-force punch was not easy for Guangmu to withstand. Truly going all out, Bai Junwang realized he could potentially kill Guangmu within 3 days. Seeing Bai Yi retreat, Guangmu understood there was a hidden move waiting. Now wasn't the time for a desperate struggle. Without the entrapment formation and with Bai Yi activating a hidden move, this was his only chance to escape. Who knew what Bai Yi's hidden move would be? If he couldn't escape, he would be in a dire situation. With a grasp into the void, a powerful divine force condensed into a singularity. This punch seemed like the material force of an entire world, erupting from a point, eventually evolving into a world, born from the void and vanishing into the void. Space condensation. Breaking law with strength turned out to be true. A punch from the divine body could shatter Guangmu's spatial origin source, causing his figure to plunge into a chaotic and dark flow. Boom! A punch struck, traversing space and arriving directly in front of Guangmu Tianzuan. Faced with this punch, Guangmu Tianzuan's third eye at his forehead rotated. Unable to avoid it, he could only withstand it head-on. Jian Wushuang, who was taken into the sleeve, through the sense of space, felt the momentum, the power making his mind tremble. The external battle lasted for less than a few breaths, but each clash caused the space he was in to tremble, even showing signs of fragmentation. Lu Yang, standing in the dark corner, was equally surprised by the external battle. He was stronger than Jian Wushuang, and his perception was even more apparent. A Tier 6 Emperor? Is he really that strong? Why does it seem different from what he has encountered before? He had witnessed the Supreme Demon Sect Master taking action, transforming into an 8-armed demon and battling with a Tier 6 Emperor. It was impressive, but not as awe-inspiring as this, breaking the origin source of space. Is this something an emperor can achieve? He couldn't even comprehend space properly. Since stepping into the origin source of space, his realm had stagnated, and he could only rely on treasures to accumulate progress. Otherwise, he would never hope to reach Tier 6 in his lifetime. As the envoy of the Qixin Temple, how could Guangmu Tianzuan not possess some unique skills? Faced with that punch, a green armored suit condensed on his body, gathering the power of his entire body. His strongest palm of a lifetime directly exploded, colliding head-on with Bai Junwang. The collision occurred, It was as if a world had been flattened by a single palm, but even in this flattened world, there remained the same force of substance. Boom! Guangmu Tianzuan's figure was instantly forced back, and his divine body began to plummet at this moment, already reduced to 30,000 times its original size. His divine body, after undergoing modifications, had reached the limit of 50,000 times. Yet Bai Junwang's fist shattered his divine body in an instant, inflicting severe injuries. Too powerful, comparable to the invincible gods of the past. It's worth noting that the gods of that era were considered invincible among emperors, the strongest group of emperors in their timeless river of time. Those were ultimate emperors, and there weren't many who reached that level of the ultimate Tao. How could Bai Junwang become so strong? If he remembered correctly, those who refused to join the Qixin temple back then had their origin sources drained, leaving only their divine bodies thrown into the interlayer of the four great secret realms. It wasn't surprising that they could come out after so many years, given that the four great secret realms had been traversed. However, their formidable strength was somewhat unexpected. After the effective strike, Bai Junwang swiftly changed his form, transforming into 3,000 streams of light that dispersed in all directions, seemingly intending to escape. But just as he began to disperse, snowflakes started drifting down from the sky. A few snowflakes scattered in the air. This scene reminded him of the Lord of Extreme Cold, a supremely powerful universe master. This was the famed domain of the Lord of Extreme Cold. Wherever he went, everything turned into frost. The 3,000 streams of light had just dispersed, frozen in mid-air. No matter how Bai Junwang moved, he couldn't break free. Bai Junwang revealed a relaxed expression, smiling faintly. You can't escape. In this domain of extreme cold, you are nothing more than a dead fish frozen stiff. The methods of a universe master were beyond the calculation of an emperor, no matter how strong. If the gap between a Tao Lord and an emperor was a chasm, then the gap between an emperor and a universe master was like heaven and earth. Crossing such a level was simply impossible. If a Tao Lord defied the heavens, it was against the laws of the Tao, but if an emperor wanted to defy the heavens, they would be challenging the celestial laws in the river of time and space. It was simply not on the same level. Defying the heavens as an emperor was billions of times harder than a Tao Lord's defiance. In ancient times, throughout history, there was only one emperor who could reverse the river of time and space. That emperor, with extraordinary talents, was thought by many to be the birth of another ruler of the starry sky. Unfortunately, in the final moments of a prematurely shortened life, her essence condensed onto the emperor's destiny. She was none other than the great Emperor Jueyun, who had once shattered Qiuhuang City with a single sword strike, ignoring it completely. Among emperors, there was no one who could match her in a one-on-one battle. Even the 18 divine generals had to stand aside. The only one among emperors who had obtained the title of a god in the Qixin temple. The emperor's physique rivaled that of a divine master. This formidable existence was a stroke of luck for the era, allowing countless people to witness this dazzling figure. Characters like Bai Junwang couldn't even make a move in the hands of such a being, let alone break through such domains. Brother Guangmu, I have already informed Yuzhuo of the situation here. He will arrive shortly, and we just need to wait here. Bai smiled. This treasure must not be wasted in vain. When Yuzhuo arrives, he must humiliate him thoroughly, so much so that even his own people can't look at him favorably. There's also Zhu Yi. She owes him a favor in the future. Jian Wushuang's talent is outstanding. He has the potential to become an emperor in the future, a figure with the hope of reaching the pinnacle. He cannot be easily abandoned. Upon hearing that Yuzhuo is coming, Guangmu Tianzuan's face darkened. But on second thought, he didn't follow Qixin into the divine tomb. He had no right to mock Yuzhuo. Thinking of this, his expression eased, and he nodded in agreement. Yuzhuo, who had already arrived in Liuzhou, roamed around, unable to detect Bai Junwang's aura, let alone figure out where to find him. The elders and strongmen who entered Liuzhou's old palace were in the same situation, unable to find any leads. In Beishan City, Yuzhuo's gaze turned icy after receiving the message. It was Bai Yi who relayed the information to him. As long as Jian Wushuang is safe, everything is fine. But if something unexpected happens, Jinling will not spare him. He has now understood Jinling's temperament. If you go along with Jinling, everything is fine. There will be no lack of status, identity, or treasures. But if you defy even a little or fail to satisfy him, Jinling will find ways to torment him. After receiving Bai Yi's message, he immediately informed the other strong men from the old palace, and they all flew towards Beishan City in North Zhangzhou. On the way, he also rescued Yang Sanmu from under a large mountain. As these people headed to Beishan City together, deep beneath the surface of the celestial realm, in the roiling depths of a serene countenance, a colossal dragon surged and instantly arrived in Beishan City. The scent on this inheritor is similar to that person but not the foretold one, a practitioner of the primordial universe. What a pity! The dragon had only one eye, which opened, spun around, and then closed again. His true form couldn't leave, so he could only reveal a trace of power, leaving this place and heading towards Beishan City above. This trace of power was different from the origin of Qixin Temple or even the origin source of the original universe. It seemed like a force that didn't belong here. A force akin to a wandering dragon burst from the ground, entering the frigid domain. Even the domain couldn't stop it, and in an instant it entered Bai Junwang's body. Listen, this thread of power can only be sustained for 15 minutes. Follow the plan to head deep into Zhangzhou, then go north, cross the ancient city, and proceed to the frigid land. Someone will be there to meet you. Upon hearing these words, Bai Junwang was overjoyed. He had initially thought that today would be the end, but unexpectedly, the divine beings granted him a trace of true divine power. As the words fell, he felt that force surging into his body instantly. This power, the 3,000 rays that had been frozen in place instantly recondensed. This scene astonished Bai Yi. How is this possible? This is the realm of extreme cold. Even if those demon lords were to come, it wouldn't be easy to escape. Quick, retreat! Bai Yi shouted at Guangmu Tianzuan once he realized what was happening. The recondensed Bai Junwang exuded an aura that shook the heavens, a source not belonging to this world, causing even the celestial realm to tremble. This aura surpassed that of the emperor. 15 minutes. It was enough. Seeing the two of them retreat, Bai Junwang had no time to engage with them. He chose to break through the void and leave. This time, his speed exceeded the limits of space, more akin to teleportation than flight. Teleportation within the Qixin Temple. Teleportation wasn't difficult. Even Tao Lords could achieve it, but that was in the external world, in the original universe. Inside the Qixin Temple, perhaps only Jinling could teleport. Even Zhu Yi's casual traversing was due to possessing treasures. Bai Junwang could teleport and easily break through the realm of extreme cold. This indicated a qualitative change in his strength, likely reaching a level comparable to a universe master. Beishan City. The current Beishan City, if it can be called a city at all, is more like a ruin. Moreover, it's a frozen ruin trapping emperors, Tao Lords, and even weaker Yen immortals who failed to retreat in time. For mighty emperors, this is just a ruin, but for those Tao Lords, it's a future ancient relic. The aura surging above is so precious, and the treasures buried underground are even more enticing. However, these are tales for another time. In the future of Beishan City, there won't be a Beishan City or Guangmu Tianzuan. After this battle, Guangmu is preparing to settle in the White Tiger Hall, thoroughly investigating the rebellion. Many epochs of sedimentation have caused many to forget his name. It's time for him to step out again. For countless years, he has not taken that step. Perhaps taking it now could lead to a breakthrough. Although there aren't any immensely powerful inheritances for him to cultivate in the Qixin Temple, there's still a change in his mental state. Brother Guangmu, with your joining, the White Tiger Temple will surely be great again. Bai Yi expressed joy. Even though they let Bai Junwang escape this time, it's still a great harvest to have Guangmu reappear. Not counting it as a loss, it would have been even better if they hadn't used that treasure. Guangmu reveals a trace of embarrassment and says in a deep voice, Bai Yi, I disappointed you this time. I couldn't take down that guy. I had planned to use his head as the first gift to present to the White Tiger Temple. Initially, that was his intention. However, he didn't expect that the 4 great secret realms now are a gathering of extraordinary talents. Some ancient beings that refuse to die have all emerged. As a peak powerhouse, his first battle after returning turned out to be so disgraceful, which is indeed somewhat embarrassing. Bai mentioned that the core of the current White Tiger Temple consists mostly of newly risen emperors. As an old powerhouse, coming back without displaying some strength is somewhat embarrassing in front of the younger generation. Glancing at the black-robed emperors, his expression changed. You all go back first. This matter must not be leaked. Bai's face showed a slight change, and his voice carried authority. The black-robed emperors in the distance immediately took their leave upon receiving the order. With the teleportation array destroyed, they could only head to other major regions. White was about to speak to Guangmu when he noticed a light dot flashing in the distant sky, followed by a thunderous rush. The newcomer was the true form of Wuxia. Having regained his strength, his combat power was not inferior to the major hallmasters. Now, he even presided over the Elder Palace, exuding the demeanor of a superior. When he looked at Bai, there was no trace of the previous respect. Where is he? Guangmu used to be the envoy of Qixin, and his relationship with Wuxia was just average. His status was not low among these named disciples. Seeing the other's attitude of questioning and accusing, Guangmu coldly snorted. Wuxia, mind your words. One came out of seclusion to assist brother Bai, not to do your bidding. This wasn't a favor Bai owed Guangmu. It was indeed the case. He couldn't just say they were both useless and let someone run away. No matter the excuse, it couldn't be put that way. Unless the other party was the universe master. Wu's facial muscles twitched. He realized he had been too arrogant. He immediately softened his tone and said, Brother Guangmu, it's a great event for you to come out. If it were for something else, I wouldn't pursue it. But this time, it's an order from Zhenling to save Jian Wushuang's life. Though his tone became more polite, the threat in his words lingered. Bai was not buying into this. What he currently detested the most was others using Zhenling to suppress him. In anger, he retorted, Humph! It's Zhenling giving you orders, not us. Even though the person had escaped from their hands, it wasn't fair to blame it all on them. What about Wuxia? Allowing a divine craftsman to follow Jian Wushuang, what kind of strength did he have? Let alone the peak, even a tier 6 emperor could easily take Jian Wushuang's life. Blaming them for not protecting him well was unjust. Their heavenly temple's master had already fallen. What was Jian Wushuang in the grand scheme of things? Did they think everyone could reach the pinnacle of the ultimate Tao? If that were the case, they might as well offer up those ultimate Tao lords as ancestors to be worshipped. Temple Master Bai, your words are uncalled for. Although Zhenling has granted the northern region to the Elder Palace, don't forget who you are fighting for. At this point, Wu's also joined in, getting fired up as he continued loudly, You White Tiger Temple. Can't even stop a tier 6 emperor. Both sides were becoming increasingly furious. It was clear that negotiations were futile. Bai also realized that Wu's lacked the courage to take responsibility for this mess. The only option left was another battle. Boom! Wu's manifested his true form, filled with confidence. Today's fight might force Zhenling to intervene, or else he would be too embarrassed to face Zhenling. Previously, Guangmu had somewhat listened to reason, but seeing Wu's actions, he couldn't hold back any longer, given his explosive temperament. Dare you make a move? Wu's face twisted in a menacing manner, absorbing Guangmu's aura directly. He didn't actually attack. It was just a display of intimidating pressure. However, at this point, avoiding a battle was no longer an option. This wasn't an exaggeration. It was a long-planned move. Guangmu Tianzuan had been persuaded by Bai with great difficulty. He couldn't just stand by and watch. He immediately joined the fray. Some emperors who hadn't fled far yet, noticing another large-scale battle behind them, were terrified and accelerated. not daring to look back. In the void, a faint figure appeared, and Jinling had arrived. Gazing at the ruins, as time rewound and the events unfolded, Jinling understood what had happened. Without even a glance at them, he walked away. Wu's was strength surpassed by Junwang's by far. If he truly went all out, Bai Yi's current avatar and Guangmu were no match. Despite the apparent commotion, both sides were actually holding back, and this conflict was a show for Jinling. But Jinling couldn't be bothered to watch. External pressures, internal turmoil. Jinling's job was indeed not easy. He directly concealed his figure, leaving only a trace of his presence to convey the message that he had come, and that was sufficient. Jian Wushuang was indeed crucial. Since discovering the underlying reasons, Jinling treated him with special regard, even giving him the personal belonging of Qixin. Now, facing such a fate, time and destiny, there was nothing more to be said. The timeline couldn't be examined, and keeping him around would only be a nuisance. If he fell, so be it. Jinling had done well enough. The entity in the starry sky probably wouldn't pursue him. Moreover, Jian Wushuang might not have any connection with that entity. Perhaps he was just overthinking things. However, after losing an ultimate Dao Lord, Jinling would never make such a mistake again. Though achieving the ultimate harmony was difficult, it was formidable when done collectively. Over 1,000 ultimate existences. As long as even 10% succeeded in the ultimate Dao merge, there would be over 100 ultimate emperors. Among these individuals, as long as one reached the pinnacle and ascended to the universe master, they could resolve the crisis in the primordial universe, eliminate the true master, and understand the karma left behind in the beginning. He could bring Qixin Temple back into the river of time, exploring other timelines. In more stable timelines, where stronger beings held sway, he refused to believe that the prophecy of the senior would truly cause the river of time to run dry. If all else failed, he would activate Qixin Temple, investigating the senior's causality. Though the senior was powerful, there was a deep connection between him and Shen Wan. Sacrificing Shen Wan's blood, he would trace the senior's location, and wherever he went, Qixin Temple would follow. Let's see who would perish first. The weight of the prophecy hung over him. The reason Qixin Temple sought influence far and wide was to restore the glory of the Qixin lineage. Yet, the senior warned them that reopening Qixin Temple would inevitably attract a formidable future presence, causing the entire timeline to wither, allowing that presence to ascend to its peak. With the entire timeline depleted, the fate of the Qixin lineage would be sealed. No matter how powerful that future entity was, what use would it be? The future. Jinling shook his head. Too distant. Seize the present moment. Returning to the sea of origin source, within the Heart Sea Pavilion, there was still one person, the ultimate emperor of the original universe, Shang. Breakthrough. Jinling's tone was gentle, and as he looked at Shang, a hint of satisfaction appeared in his eyes. It's too outrageous, but what can one do? Back then, Emperor Juyun was also extremely rebellious, and what happened later? No breakthrough, and he ended it himself. Totally useless. Shang, the emperor who steadily moves forward and remains extremely low-key. That's the true future. Once you step into the Lord of the Universe, you become the most powerful existence. Dao Lords defy the heavens. Emperors defy the heavens. Do they really think they can defy the heavens? At most, they can kill an emperor with a weak point. Seeing Jinling's return, Shang quickly stood up, a smile on his face, and his response was calm, just nodding. There was no joy typical of ordinary people who had just made a breakthrough. Your accumulation is profound. In no time you will reach the peak. Perfecting the cultivation of the spatial origin source is only a matter of time. Now what you need to focus on is the secrets of the universe. That is the only way out. Shang's path was different from Qixin's, but their characters in cultivation were most alike. Among those Dao Lords, he couldn't see much, but as long as nothing unexpected happened, Shang would undoubtedly shine through the ages. The two sat back down. Shang broke through and achieved the Tier 6 Emperor. There were still a series of cultivation realms and hidden realms waiting for him. The tempering of the ultimate emperor was not comparable to that of a Tao lord. Finally, Zhenling escorted Shang away to the god's tomb, one of the 4 great secret realms. The 5 legacies left by Qixin were now opening, starting with the first. There were 2 more to go. The one Zhenling valued most, Hu Qing, would undoubtedly claim one, and if Jian Wushuang did not fall, he could secure the last one. Within the original realm, there were a few candidates with hope of claiming one. His ability to assess people was exceptionally high. Whether it was the ultimate emperor Shang or Tao Lord Hu Qing, both shared a distinct similarity: steadiness. Deep foundations allowed for transformation when encountering significant opportunities. Jian Wushuang, on the other hand, was the opposite. His foundations were uneven. His temperament varied greatly, lacking stability. He had nearly fallen several times, and this time those old guys had almost taken him away. At the level of Tao Lord, there might be some luck involved. But once reaching the emperor level, luck was just a means, and the luck of stronger emperors was more profound. The emperor was the beginning of true strength, and the crises at that level were much more desperate than those faced by Tao Lords. Zhenling sighed. He was a true spirit with no mention of a law avatar. He had to constantly guard the true core origin source sea in the Qixin temple. These little guys can't afford any more accidents. Zhenling's figure flashed, and in the void of the Qixin temple, he looked towards the overlapping 4 great secret realms. Lifting his arm from within his robe, he pointed, and a dazzling light shot from his fingertip, rushing into the 4 great secret realms. The giant dragon surging within the confines of the 4 great secret realms let out a deafening roar. This lesson should be enough to keep the other party in check for a while. But that wasn't sufficient. His minions were still hidden within the 4 great secret realms. He directly communicated with the Elder Palace, instructing them to go to the primitive realm and find Zhuyi to command several guardian gods to suppress the heavenly realm. Zhuyi in the original realm didn't mind this. Although coerced into giving up Demon Sound Mountain, maintaining the stability of the 4 great secret realms and offering some treasures were reasonable requests. On the central Yuanyang Lake in the heavenly realm, for streams of light descended from the sky, creating myriad splashes as they fell into the lake. Besides these 4 streams of light, a barrier of qi rose along the boundaries of Yuanyang Lake at this moment. The previous formation was established by the strong within the Elder Palace, but the current qi wall was a gift from Zhuyi, a formation that even peak experts couldn't break, establishing a solid foundation for the Elder Palace. The many experts who returned to the Elder Palace at this moment were startled by this scene. They thought they were going to be questioned for their crimes, but unexpectedly, they gained so many benefits. Others didn't think much of it, unaware of Jian Wushuang's importance. However, Wu's was heart-tightened. The more Zhenling didn't come out to humiliate him, the more uneasy he felt. He always felt that Zhenling was waiting for an opportunity to settle scores with him. Humph! It's all because of those 2 useless idiots. Wu's were cursed inwardly. Since they sensed Zhenling's arrival, they had stopped, exchanged a few taunts, and ultimately even sat on the same teleportation formation, returning to their respective bases. The northern region had completely fallen into their hands. Apart from recalling strong individuals from various temples, Bai Yi also dismantled the teleportation formations. If the Elder Palace didn't offer enough treasures to buy them, they would destroy them. This infuriated the people of the Elder Palace. In the end, they had to sign a contract, agreeing to give 3/10 of the profits from the teleportation formations to the White Tiger Hall. At this moment, the internal unity of the Elder Palace was strong. Besides the pressure from the White Tiger Hall, there was also the opportunity that came after this catastrophe. I have the highest seniority here. Today's meeting will be presided over by me. A blue ox elder, dressed in a Tai Chi robe, declared with authority. Thousands of experts in the hall nodded. Even Wu Zhuo had no objections. His identity was special, and his strength was formidable, but he hadn't forgotten his humility from the past. Outside the Qixin temple, unable to enter and unable to leave, like a stray dog. Now that he had finally found a place to stay, it was time to act appropriately. The arrogance from the past naturally had to be erased. Good. Since that's the case, let's begin. This meeting was to divide the northern region. Of course, as strong individuals, they had their pride and couldn't make it too obvious. They called it an election. The elders with the designation, above the high platform, began to read the rules set by the Qixin temple. Then came the selection. Apart from the designation, the elder palace also needed to have its own positions. When this was brought up, it was instantly opposed by the designated elders. However, unable to resist the general consensus, after some negotiations, they finally settled on the final positions. The designated elders obtained privileges at the higher echelons. The elders of other ranks either held important positions in the palace or were allocated to some wealthy provinces in the northern region. The northern region was vast, with numerous treasures. Despite their small number, even the weakest and lowest ranking among them could be assigned to prosperous areas like Liuzhou, becoming local powerhouses. The status of the Elder Palace was no less than that of the Divine Temple. Once they assumed their positions, their local status was very high. Although most were only Tier 5 emperors, their strength was formidable, almost crushing those of the same tier. With their prestigious status, they practically ruled the northern region. Elder Palace. The head of the Enforcer Hall will be taken up by Prince Wuxia. Congratulations! For a moment, Prince Wuxia was in the limelight, raising his wine cup high. The Elder Palace was divided into 6 halls, and the Enforcer Hall held the highest position. It could oversee any part of the northern region and was the most lucrative position. Prince Wuxia gestured upward to acknowledge the elder with the rank of expressing his respect. He then looked at the other elders below, a smile on his face as he spoke. Thanks to the favor of all the seniors, I, Wuxia, will do my best as the head of the Enforcer Hall after taking office. After some pleasantries, he continued to boast, the northern region, that's just a starting point. In the future, our influence won't be limited to just the northern region but will extend to the entire celestial realm and even the 4 great secret realms. Good! Exclaimed the Taoist with the rank of A above. The elders in the hall also erupted in cheers. Originally, they thought Prince Wuxia hadn't forgotten his previous identity. Now, it seemed he had become more honest and wouldn't oppress others with his strength. Such a person wouldn't be simple in the future and needed to be properly aligned with. After the commotion settled, the Taoist with the rank of A spoke again. Now, within the entire Elder Palace, there is only one position left. He pointed to the throne behind him. This was the highest point of the Elder Palace, and the throne behind him naturally held the highest position. The pinnacle of power. The pinnacle of power in the northern region, the pinnacle of power in the Elder Palace. As he spoke, the expressions of the people present became solemn. They didn't have the qualifications to sit in that position, but among the at-rank elders above, there were several who did. Among the dozen or so Tier 6 elders, other than the Green Bull, there were 2 more who were very qualified. Emperor Lu Hua and Sword God Changfeng. These 2 individuals possessed strength that rivaled the pinnacle, ranking 4th among the A-listers. They were just a step behind Old Qingyo Taoist, who held the 3rd position. Old Qingyo Taoist was in the A-list 3rd place, while Emperor Lu Hua and Sword God Changfeng held the 4th. As for the others behind them, their qualifications and strength were not sufficient. The divine craftsman Yang Sanmu held the 6th position and was assigned as a deputy hall master in the treasure hall. However, the hall master did not actively engage in refining. This greatly displeased Yang Sanmu, but considering that the other party was a Tier 6 emperor and had a higher seniority, coupled with the failure to protect Jian Wushuang in this escort mission, there was nothing he could do. Being able to obtain the position of a deputy hall master was thanks to Wu's insistence against the opinions of many. Wu's also bore significant responsibility for failing to protect Jian Wushuang. It was his decision to send the old man with the goat horns to find Broly, resulting in not only the failure to locate him but also the loss of Jian Wushuang. The old man with the goat horns sat in the upper corner, his heart ashen. Back then, he had made an agreement with Jian Wushuang to help him refine the origin of the beast god weapon. Little fellow, I hope you survive. The old man with the goat horns took a gulp of wine and sighed deeply. The competition above, he had no qualification and no interest. Emperor Lu Hua, Sword God Changfeng, Old Qingyo Taoist. The three most qualified individuals stood side by side. Old Qingyo Taoist stood in the middle, with a calm smile on the surface, but deep down he was quite confident. Everyone, listen to me. Emperor Lu Hua was the first to speak, breaking the silence. He was refined and spoke in a very friendly tone. Turning to look at the position behind him and then at the crowd, he smiled faintly and said, "This position is good." While speaking, his eyes revealed a longing. But he knew very well that the cost of occupying this position was too high. Turning back, Emperor Lu Hua looked at everyone and uttered words that shocked everyone present. Lu lack talent, and I am not qualified to occupy this position alone. This statement surprised everyone. Even Wuxia showed a hint of confusion. He and Emperor Lu Hua were life and death brothers since ancient times, with a deep bond. If Lu Hua were to contend for that position, Wuxia would undoubtedly assist him. Moreover, he had already begun secretly rallying others, preparing to support Emperor Lu Hua. But now he suddenly gave up the fight. This unexpected turn puzzled many. The only one not surprised was the old Taoist Qingyo. All of this was his behind-the-scenes scheming. Now only two candidates remained. The temperament of the sword god Changfeng was fiery. He lacked the refinement of Emperor Lu Hua. Knowing the temper of the other party, Qingyo also recognized the situation and made a gesture of invitation. Stepping forward, sword god Changfeng exuded a powerful aura, his face fierce, and his voice deep. "I won't list all the friends who support me. Qingyo, let's get straight to the vote." Elections naturally involved casting votes. Now that Lu Hua had withdrawn, only the two of them remained, making a direct vote possible. Lu Hua stepped back and began communicating with Wuxia. "Vote for Changfeng." Seated in the middle, Wuxia quickly understood the intention. Qingyo had confidence, but he didn't want to make things too embarrassing. During the voting, he communicated with the two beside him and made some promises. However, only Lu Hua agreed. Sword god Changfeng, however, was not buying into this. "Brother Qingyo, 3 positions might not be bad at all. It could be more advantageous," Emperor Lu Hua secretly communicated, while on the other side, he was instigating Changfeng to fight to the end. The two joined forces to resist Qingyo. They didn't aim for just one position but two. Who dictated that the Elder Palace had only one palace master, and the 4 temples had only 4 temple masters. Nowadays, it's popular for the capable to hold high positions. Since they were all capable, they decided to share the seats. Taoist Qingyo always smiled, but deep down he cursed. Lu Hua's withdrawal was to team up with Changfeng to trick him, but he had no choice. Changfeng had such an explosive temper that it was impossible to negotiate with him. The vote ended quickly. After the announcement, the two had an equal number of votes. With so few people, vote manipulation was easy. Changfeng couldn't win. If he won, Lu Hua would lose, and Qingyo couldn't win either, as winning would mean both Changfeng and Lu Hua would lose. Equality was the only true victory. It seemed like the two were fighting, but the chess player behind the scenes was Emperor Lu Hua. Lost. Qingyo's expression remained unchanged, but he sighed inwardly. This time he lost both face and position. At this moment, Lu Hua slowly walked to the front and said loudly, "I'll be the notary. Since it's a tie, why not both of you take this position together?" As soon as these words were spoken, there was a moment of silence, followed by unanimous support. If both took the position, everyone would be a winner, and there would be no need to worry about being harassed by the defeated side later on. Emperor Lu Hua turned and smiled at the old Taoist Qingyo, then glanced at the sword god Changfeng. He signaled that it was time for them to speak up. However, old Taoist Qingyo secretly transmitted his voice. "Lu Hua, aren't you afraid that the two of us will take these positions and push you aside?" He has a point. When the time came, the two of them could each take half, sidelining him. That was a real possibility. However, Lu Hua had already made up his mind. He had subtly mentioned to Changfeng earlier that once he lost his support, Changfeng wouldn't stand a chance against Qingyo. As for Qingyo, although he controlled half, what he wanted was the complete Elder's Palace. In the future, Zhenling would elevate them to high positions, and the allure of the Elder's Palace was too great. To defeat them, Lu Hua and Changfeng had to join forces. The only way for Lu Hua to win was to win him over. As for Changfeng, he couldn't be won over, and there was no way to win him over. Brother Qingyo, everything is for the Elder's Palace, and it won't affect me personally. Hearing this, Qingyo compromised. Next, they both announced that the Elder's Palace would have 3 palace masters, with no distinction between them. Qingyo, Changfeng, and Lu Hua would jointly govern the Elder's Palace. The cheers inside the palace sharply contrasted with the emperors outside. The emperors from the original universe had been stranded on an island since arriving at the Elder's Palace. Now that the internal situation was stable, Wuxia personally arranged for these individuals. Of the over 10,000 emperors, except for a few Tier 3 and 4 emperors sent to the God's Tomb, the rest were scattered among the Elder's Palace's strongholds, overseeing various large regions in the northern region. Selected as the Emperor, Jian Wushuang went to the Grave God Mountain, which was within the God's Tomb's secret realm. These individuals were worth nurturing. Among them were Zhen Wuyang and Tongtian Buddha, as well as some third-tier emperors like Wuliang Buddha. Naturally, the leaders of various peak powers also went together. Accompanying these people were also those ultimate Tao Lords. As these individuals headed to the Tomb God Mountain, the trial in the primitive realm also reached its final stage. In the original realm, Jiajuan, North City. Now, only Huqing remained on the city wall. The only intact city wall now belonged to Huqing, and Wanxing broke through once again, thoroughly stabilizing the myriad origin sources Tao, and his strength soared once more. Meanwhile, Huqing underwent a transformation. In the cycle of reincarnation supreme technique, with each ascent of the origin source, there was a corresponding cycle. Now, Huqing was no longer as simple as being comparable to an emperor. Jian Wushuang's disappearance didn't attract much attention, but Huqing, who was most familiar with Jian Wushuang in the entire original realm, naturally took it to heart. Learning from Qiu Huang that Jian Wushuang might have fallen, a mix of emotions overwhelmed him. Brother Wushuang. Watching the approaching black mist outside the city wall, Huiqing's aura remained unwavering. Stepping forward, he muttered to the sky, "The road you can't finish, I'll walk for you." Boom! The words had just fallen when the demon ceiling circle above erupted suddenly. A silver staff, sweeping across the battlefield, laid waste to everything in its path. The black mist finally condensed into a towering demon lord, with 9 stars shining on its forehead. This was a devouring demon comparable to a Tier 2 emperor. However, Huqing's unleashed power was no weaker than the opponent's. The long staff exuded an overwhelming aura, and his momentum was unstoppable in the cycle of reincarnation. On another city wall, a dazzling light burst forth, and the strength of the myriad stars fell slightly short. Although engaged in a fierce exchange with the demon, the breath of the opponent weakened. But this original planet had already exceeded the budget of the Vermilion Bird Temple. It should be noted that many participants on the original planets were already beginning to withdraw, because no one had reached the final wave. The first 9 waves were considered screening. The subsequent 10 rounds were the real tempering, allowing the challenger to continuously break through. Every single wave of the trial gave the trial takers a clear boost in power. After clearing the first 3 waves, Tao Lords would have the battle prowess of half-step emperors. By the 6th wave, they could rival an emperor, and by the 7th wave, they needed the strength to kill an emperor. The 8th wave involved battling 3 devouring demon lords at the emperor level. The last wave was a formidable second-tier emperor, tasking a Grand Yen Immortal with the mission to slay a Tier 2 emperor. Moreover, these Tier 2 emperors were not ordinary. They were much stronger than the indigenous emperors of the 4 great secret realms, already considered top-notch Tier 2 emperors. Moreover, these Tier 2 imperial emperors were not ordinary. They were much stronger than the native imperial emperors of the 4 secret lands. They could already be considered top-tier Tier 2 imperial emperors. In the original realm, 180 original planets were in migration, with half of them on the move. Each original planet was chosen by only 100 individuals, all of whom were Tao Lords. The remaining half was undergoing trials, and these original planets were even more formidable. Among them was Tao Lord Jian, who had some acquaintance with Jian Wushuang. At this moment, he was also undergoing trials, and like Wan Xing, he exchanged for imitation eternal treasures. Their strengths were elevated. Even though the ultimate Tao Lord had been defeated, he persisted. In the Vermilion Bird Temple, a rare appearance outside the original planets, Zhu Yi personally guarded it. Many original planets were moved to the treasure vault. Despite the apparent silence above, it housed genuine eternal treasures. An original planet was more precious than an eternal treasure. Looking at the things above, you could tell, like the feather on original planet Alpha 9, it was the spoils of war from that original planet. The owner of that feather was an extraordinary being, a special life form. The divine body had reached the true limit, and the body expanded to the size of a world. In the end, it fell beneath the original planet. In reality, there were 3,600 original planets, forming the core of a great formation. Each one was more precious than an eternal treasure. How powerful was the great formation composed of 3,600 original planets? Unimaginable. In any case, even that powerful special life form fell here. Temple Master, a message from Lord Wuxia. He said he's taking the Emperor to the Grave God Mountain. Should we wait for him and go together? Zhu Qi cautiously conveyed the message. When Shan Jun was about to be imprisoned, she had also gone to beg for mercy. However, this time, it was an order from Zhenling. Zhu Yi had no choice but to wait and bring it up later. Now that Shan Jun had just entered, it would be difficult if Zhu Qi went to plead on behalf of Zhu Qi. Given Zhenling's personality, Shan Jun should have just bowed down, and everything would be fine. Now, the four great secret realms were in a flourishing state. If she were to plead for mercy now, Zhenling would definitely kill her. In the previous encounter, he took away a demonic mountain, and taking advantage of the situation, he sent Shan Jun to the second prison. All of this was probably a scheme orchestrated by Zhenling, waiting for her to plead, only to seize the opportunity to retaliate. This explains why she generously bestowed numerous benefits upon the Elder Palace, all done to show Zhenling that she was playing along. Zhu Yi suddenly felt a headache and waved her hand, saying, "Tell Wuxia there's no need to wait. Let the Emperor enter first." "Yes," Zhu Qi respectfully replied and disappeared from sight. Inside the Vermilion Bird Temple now sat over 10,000 people, each of them at the level of Tao Lord. About half of them had yet to emerge, making a total of roughly 20,000. Among them, there were over 200 ultimate existences, almost 1 in 100 being a practitioner of the ultimate Tao. This was roughly in line with the previous estimate. It wouldn't be wise to only recruit ultimate existences. That would be too wasteful. After sending off these individuals, the Black Tortoise Temple would send hundreds of millions of cultivators. The number of Yen Immortals far exceeded that of Grand Yen Immortals.